In the shadowed annals of Tamriel's history, where the veil between mortal and divine thins to a whisper, few figures loom as large, as enigmatic as Vivec, the warrior-poet of the Tribunal Temple. Born in the fires of revolution and prophecy, Vivec's tale begins not in the grand halls of power, but in the humble, storm-swept wilds of Resdain, the ancient name for what would become Morrowind. It was the first era, a time when the CHIM, the ancestors of the Dwemer, roamed under the guidance of their lordly houses, their skin golden and their eyes alight with the fervor of Veloth's exodus from the Somerset Isles. Picture, if you will, the year 700 E1, though dates in elven reckonings blur like mist over the inner sea. The land was a cauldron of unrest, simmering with the ambitions of the Daedric Prince Boethia, who had whispered promises of enlightenment to the prophet Veloth centuries before. The CHIM, proud and warlike, had settled in the ashlands and foyadas, their caravans carving paths through volcanic rock under skies perpetually bruised by Red Mountain's fury. It was here, amid the nomadic tribes and the rising tensions with their Nedic neighbors and the Dwemer, those deep-delving dwarves of brass and steam, that Vivec entered the world. Historical accounts, pieced together from the scattered sermons of the temple and the forbidden scrolls of the dissident priests, speak of Vivec's birth as no ordinary event. He was Vec, the unborn, the one who was never truly born, for his origin defies the linear chains of mortality. Some say he emerged from the union of a mortal CHIM woman and a divine spark, nurtured in the egg of creation itself. Others, drawing from the 36 Lessons of Vivec, claim he was pulled from the void by the hands of Mephala, the web-spinner, and Azura, the queen of dawn and dusk, as part of the grand design to counter the growing tyranny of the Dwemer king Kagrenak. The poetry of Vivec's early life is woven into myth, where fact and verse entwine like the roots of an ancient Telvanni mushroom tower. As a youth, or perhaps in a timeless infancy, Vivec wandered the ash-choked plains, his mind a canvas for the gods' brushstrokes. He learned the arts of war from the netch-herders and the secrets of the stars from the wise women who communed with the anticipations. His voice, even then, carried the cadence of epic verse, turning battles into ballads and betrayals into beautiful inevitabilities. Yet it was the encounter with Sotha-Sil and Almalexia that forged Vivec into the triad of power known as the Tribunal. Almalexia, the mother of Morrowind, radiant and commanding, found in Vivec a kindred spirit, a warrior whose ferocity was tempered by the subtlety of a poet's quill. Sotha-Sil, the clockwork apostle, brought the cold logic of machinery to their union. Together they rose against the false god-king Wulfharth, the ash-king of Skyrim, and his Nordic hordes in the War of the First Council. The Battle of Red Mountain in 1E700 stands as the crucible. Archaeological evidence from the ruins beneath Vardenfell, shattered Dwemery automatons and chimer spears fused in slag, attests to the ferocity. Kagrenak, the chief tonal architect, had delved too deep into the Heart of Lorkhan, the divine engine that beat at the mountain's core. With his tools, the Wraithguard, Keening, and Sunder, he sought to capture divinity itself, to make the Dwemer gods among mortals. Vivec, in the heat of combat, faced the Nerevarine prophecy head-on. Nerevar, the Hortator, the living god incarnate, led the Chimer forces with Vivec at his side as counselor and blade. But betrayal simmered in the ranks. Dumac, the Dwemer king, and Cagronnic's experiments threatened to unravel the fabric of reality. The air hummed with the thume of the Ash King, shouts that shattered stone, while Vivec countered with words that wove shields of will. As the battle raged, the heart's power pulsed, drawing warriors into its rhythm. Vivec, ever the poet, recited verses that bent fate, his chants echoing the canticle of the saving god. It was here that the tribunal's path diverged. In the aftermath, with Nerevar fallen, struck down in the chaos, some say by his own lieutenants, Vivec, Almalexia, and Sothasil stood amid the ruins. Cagronnic's folly had activated, the heart exposed, its numinous glow bathing them in otherworldly light. They swore an oath, not of vengeance, but of ascension. Using Cagronnic's profane tools, they tapped the heart's power, swearing to protect Resdayn from further incursions. Thus began the apotheosis, the transformation from mortal champions to living gods. Vivec emerged not just as a warrior, but as the embodiment of duality, male and female, mercy and murder, poetry and prophecy. The years following were a symphony of consolidation. The Tribunal, now ALMSIVI, reshaped Resdayn into Morrowind, cursing the Chimer with Dunmerry skin as dark as the Tribunal's new mantle, a mark of their trial by fire. Vivec founded the city that bears his name, a floating metropolis on the shores of the inner sea, its cantons rising like the verses of a grand poem. From its high towers, he gazed upon a land reborn, where ash storms whispered secrets, and the ghost sea lapped at the foundations of faith. But Vivec's rule was no iron fist. His teachings, compiled in the 36 lessons, blended the martial with the mystical. Each lesson a chapter in his life, illustrated with metaphors of wheels within wheels, the tower touching the void. He taught that CHIM, the secret of enlightenment, the realization of one's dream self, was the key to godhood, a state where the dreamer awakes within the dream without fating. As Morrowind flourished under the Tribunal's gaze, Vivec's warrior aspect shone in conflicts with the Empire and the Slowed, yet his poet's heart yearned for the subtle arts. He penned canticles that moved mountains, his words shaping the very landscape. The people revered him as Vec, the one who walked the walking ways, bridging the mortal coil with divine threads. In those early centuries, Vivec's duality became legend. He appeared as a hermaphroditic figure, armored in muatra, the sacred fluid of creation, his form shifting like quicksilver. To the faithful, he was the protector against the sixth house, the dreamer who kept the Daedra at bay. To scholars, he was the enigma, his lessons a labyrinth of half-truths and hidden meanings. The Tribunal's power, drawn from the heart, sustained their immortality, but it came at a cost. Whispers of the Nerevarine prophecy lingered, a ghost in the machine of their divinity. Vivec knew this, for in his poetry he foretold the wheels turning, the inevitable return of the incarnate. Thus, in the quiet hours before sleep claims you, consider Vivec's beginnings, from the unborn poet to the god who scripted Morrowind's fate. His story unfolds like a scroll in the ash winds, revealing layers upon layers of glory and grief. Centuries passed, and the Tribunal's light illuminated Morrowind like the twin moons Maser and Secunda in a velvet sky. Vivec City became a beacon, its ziggurats piercing the perpetual haze, home to pilgrims who sought the warrior-poet's wisdom. The first era waned into the second, marked by the rise and fall of empires beyond the Veloti Mountains. Akaviri invaders clashed with the Dwemer legions, but Vivec's strategies, poetic maneuvers that anticipated the enemy's heart, turned the tides. Historical records from the temple archives described Vivec's interventions as divine poetry in motion. During the War of the Isle in 1E 2920, when the empire of Remen-Cyrodiil pressed upon the borders, Vivec descended from his palace in a chariot of light. His speeches rallied the houses, turning fractious Dwemer into a unified front. "We are the ash that rises," his words etching themselves into the communal memory, inspiring warriors to fight not for land, but for the soul of Veloth. Yet beneath the triumphs lay the seeds of doubt. The tribunal's reliance on the Heart of Lorkhan grew heavier with each tapping. Sothasil delved into clockwork realms. Almalexia nurtured the hearth of Mournhold, but Vivec wandered the walking ways, metaphysical paths where he communed with the Godhead. In these journeys, he discovered CHIM, the tower of zero summing, where one achieves amaranth without dissolution. It was this realization that allowed him to maintain his mortal guise amid godhood, a secret he veiled in his lessons. The Second Era brought the interregnum, a time of chaos after the Empire's collapse. Morrowind stood as an island of stability, its tribunal unchallenged. Vivec's poet's quill documented this era in verse, canticles that chronicled the rise of the Artaeum mystics and the fall of the slowed necromancers. He forged alliances with the Posigic Order, sharing riddles that bridged the arcane divides. But the warrior within Vivec stirred with the Akiviri potentate's shadow. In 2E 582, during the Alliance War, Vivec's visions foretold the soul burst of Tiber Septim. The general, later Talos, eyed Morrowind with the hunger of conquest. Vivec, sensing the dragon's fire, prepared the land. He taught the bone-mold legions the art of the subtle strike, poetry translated to spear thrusts. The conquest came in 2E 882, not with brute force, but with the Numidium, the brass god of the Dwemer, animated by Tiber's will. The Battle of Aldmoroch shook the earth, Numidium's footsteps echoing like thunderclaps across the province. Vivec faced the walker in single combat, his Muatra armor gleaming, reciting verses that disrupted the skin-stealer's rhythm. Though Morrowind bent the knee, Vivec negotiated terms that preserved the tribunal's sovereignty, a poetic compromise that spared the land total subjugation. Under the Empire, Vivec's role evolved. He became the patron of artists and warriors alike, his city a hub of culture, where bards sang of LMVI's glory. The 36 lessons proliferated, each sermon a puzzle for the enlightened. Lesson 8, for instance, recounts Vivec's duel with the monster of the mountain, a metaphor for the internal struggles of divinity. As the Third Era dawned, whispers of the Nerevarine grew louder. The prophecy, born in the ashes of Red Mountain, spoke of Azura's champion returning to expose the tribunal's lie. Vivec, ever the seer, incorporated this into his teachings, preparing the faithful for the wheel's turn. He appeared in dreams, guiding lost souls through the labyrinth of fate. The Arnesian War in 3E 397 tested Vivec's mettle. Slavers from the south raided the borderlands, echoing ancient Dwemer sins against the Argonians. Vivec led the counteroffensive personally, his presence turning the tide at Tear. There, amid the flooded ruins, he composed the Canticle of the Holy Waters, a poem that invoked the Tribunal's mercy, leading to the captive's release. Internally, cracks formed. Almalexia grew jealous of Vivec's popularity. Sothasil withdrew into his mechanist dreams. Vivec mediated, his poetry a balm for divine discord. He established the Ordinators, the elite guard sworn to ALMSIVI, their ebony armor symbols of unyielding faith. The Red Year loomed in 4E5, but its precursors stirred in the late Third Era. Dagoth-Ur, the sixth house, awoke from his slumber beneath the mountain, corrupted by the heart's taint. His minions, the ash vampires and sleepers, spread blight across Vardenfell. Vivec responded with pilgrimages, blessing the land with his steps, each footprint a ward against the blight. In 3E427, the Nerevarine arrived, incarnate of prophecy. Vivec, recognizing the truth, conspired in secret. He revealed the Tribunal's theft of the heart's power, confessing the murder of Nerevar in a moment of poignant verse. "I am the wheel that turns," he admitted, guiding the hero to destroy Dagoth-Ur and sever the Tribunal's link. The confrontation at Red Mountain was cataclysmic. Vivec's final lesson unfolded as the heart was silenced, his immortality waning. Yet, in CHIM's embrace, he transcended, becoming the suspended god, trapped between being and non-being. As the ash fell, Vivec's legacy endured. His city, once floating, now a memory in the ministry of truth, hovered above as a monument to his duality. The Fourth Era dawned in catastrophe, the Red Year erupting in 4E5 as Dao, the meteor Vivec had held in stasis with his will, plummeted upon his city. The Tribunal's power, severed by the Nerevarine, could no longer sustain the miracle. Vardenfell's heart exploded, ash blanketing the land, forcing the Dwemer into exile. Vivec vanished, his fate a riddle wrapped in poetry. Scholars debate his end. Some claim he achieved CHIM fully, ascending to dream with the Godhead. Others, from the New Temple's doctrines, say he was unmade, his essence scattered like verses on the wind. The 36 lessons persist, studied by Outlanders and Dwemer alike, their meanings evolving with each recitation. Vivec's influence echoes in Morrowind's rebirth, the Argonian invasion of the south, the rise of the House Redoron, all bear his strategic imprint. He taught duality, to be both warrior and poet, to embrace contradiction as strength. In Solstime's frozen wastes, where the Nerevarine once walked, bards still sing of Vec, the one who loved and slew in equal measure. Archaeological digs in the ruins of Vivec City uncover murals depicting his hermaphrodite form, quill in one hand, sword in the other. These artifacts, preserved in the ash, speak of a god who humanized divinity, making the divine accessible through art. In the broader tapestry of Elder Scrolls lore, Vivec stands as the ultimate enchanter, his words shaping reality. He challenged the amaranth, glimpsed the tower's apex, and in doing so, gifted mortals a path to their own godhood. As you drift towards sleep, let Vivec's verses lull you, the warrior-poet eternal, whose story never truly ends. but loops like the wheels of the universe. As the Third Era progressed, Vivec's divine vigilance extended beyond Morrowind's borders, weaving his influence into the fabric of Tamriel's turbulent history. The warp in the West, that bizarre convergence of time in 3E417, where multiple endings to the Mantella's quest overlapped in High Rock and Hammerfell, drew Vivec's subtle hand. Though not directly involved, his teachings on the Dragon Break, periods when linear time fractures like a shattered hourglass, inspired scholars to interpret the event as a manifestation of CHIM's ripples. Vivec, from his suspended palace, observed the chaos with the detachment of a poet watching ink bleed across parchment, his verses later alluding to it in Lesson 23. The wheel turns not in straight lines, but in the curves of forgotten dreams. The rise of the Septim Empire under Uriel VII brought uneasy peace, yet Vivec navigated the political currents with masterful subtlety. Diplomatic envoys from the imperial city arrived in Vivec's cantons, bearing gifts of cyrodiilic wine and requests for tribute. He received them not as a conquered king, but as an equal divinity, hosting feasts where his poetry outshone the emperor's decrees. He composed the Ode to the Dragon Throne, a work that flattered Tiber Septim's Numidium legacy, while subtly asserting Morrowind's autonomy. Through such arts, Vivec ensured that Dwemer culture permeated the empire, with temple missionaries spreading ALMSIVI's gospel to the farthest provinces. Internally, the tribunal faced mounting schisms. The dissident priests, a faction within the temple, began questioning the tribunal's divine mandate in the late Third Era. Led by figures like Gilvis Berello, they unearthed ancient Velothi texts that painted Nerevar as the true protector, not the usurping gods. Vivec responded not with suppression, but with enigmatic sermons. In the Great Sermon of the Ashen Path, delivered from the steps of his palace, he acknowledged the doubts. Doubt is the seed from which faith blooms, for in questioning the light, one learns to wield it. This philosophical maneuver quelled the unrest temporarily, turning critics into contemplative devotees, though the seeds of reform were sown. Vivec's mature male in the baritone to low mid-range, with a steady, confident, and reverent tone, Regent Vivec spied cursed images in his night dreams. The temporal companions of traitor Daedric prepared their influence in the darkness, elusive wanderings of destiny. The last prophet was long degone. God went silent times, yawned open across the empire. Only a few flickered in the ashlands, swiftly sealed by ordinators chanting Vivec's canticles. His role as warrior-poet shone here, strategy laced with mysticism, turning potential catastrophe into a testament to ALMSIVI's enduring might. Yet the personal cost mounted. Vivec's body, sustained by the heart, began to show signs of mortality. Subtle fades in his luminescence, echoes of doubt in his verses. In private meditations atop the Ministry of Truth, the massive statue suspended by his will alone, Vivec contemplated the void. The meteor, Bar Dao, held aloft as a symbol of suspended judgment, mirrored his own precarious balance. "I am the lie that tells the truth," he wrote in a hidden journal, fragments of which survive in dissident archives. The arrival of the Nerevarine in 3E427 marked the turning point. This outlander, reborn through trials in the cavern of the incarnate, unraveled the tribunal's web. Vivec, in a clandestine meeting beneath the palace, revealed all. The swearing of the false oath at Red Mountain, the slaying of Nerevar in a haze of ambition, the theft of the heart's divinity. His confession was a masterpiece of poetic remorse. We were warriors who dreamed of peace, poets who sang of war. In our hubris, we became both prisoner and cage. Guiding the Nerevarine to the ghost fence and beyond, Vivec facilitated the confrontation with Dagoth-Ur. The siege of Red Mountain unfolded as epic verse incarnate. Akula Khan, Dagoth's second skin, a colossal Dwemery construct, lumbered forth, its tonal screams shattering the air. Vivec lent his power remotely, his chants disrupting the machine's harmony. As the heart was sundered by the tools of Cogranak, a wave of unmaking swept the mountain. Dagoth-Ur dissolved into ash, his dreams extinguished, but so too did the tribunal's immortality flicker out. In the aftermath, Vivec retreated into contemplation, his city thriving, yet shadowed by change. The new temple would later canonize him as a saint, not a god, but his lessons endure as the blueprint for enlightenment. As sleep beckons, ponder Vivec's trials, the god who bore the weight of worlds on shoulders of verse, forever balancing the scales of mercy and might. With the heart of Lorkhan silenced, the tribunal's divine aura dimmed like stars at dawn. Yet Vivec's essence persisted in the subtle currents of Morrowind's soul. The Nerevarine, having fulfilled the prophecy, departed into legend, leaving behind a province forever altered. Vivec, no longer bound by the heart's rhythm, turned inward, his poetry evolving from proclamations of power to meditations on transience. In the shadowed cloisters of his palace, he inscribed the final canticle, a verse cycle that whispered of endings as beginnings. The god who falls rises in the dreamer's eye, for mortality is but a pause between stanzas. The empire, under Uriel Septim the seventh son, sought to tighten its grip on the weakened Morrowind. Imperial legions marched into the cantons, ostensibly to aid against the Blight's remnants, but with eyes on the ebony mines and temple treasures. Vivec, his warrior spirit undimmed, orchestrated a diplomatic ballet. He hosted the Council of the Ashen Accord in 3E428, where Dwemer nobles and Cyrillic legates convened amid incense-laden halls. Vivec's opening address, delivered in flawless Cyrillic, laced with poetic Tamrielic, disarmed the invaders. We stand not as conqueror and conquered, but as verses in the same epic, harmonious in discord. The accord preserved Morrowind's internal laws, a testament to Vivec's negotiation prowess, blending the poet's eloquence with the warrior's unyielding gaze. Yet divine discord brewed among the tribunal. Almalexia, her radiance fraying, grew resentful of Vivec's enduring popularity. In Mournhold's golden spires, she plotted to reclaim her primacy, her whispers turning courtiers against the false poet. Sothasil, secluded in his clockwork city beneath the earth, communicated through arcane missives, warning of unraveling threads in the fabric of fate. Vivec mediated in the walking ways, traversing metaphysical bridges to unite his fellow gods. There, in realms where time looped like a serpent's tail, he recited the binding ode, a poem that reaffirmed their triad, three lights in the void, woven eternal, lest the wheel shatter. External threats compounded the internal strife. The Kimona Kong, a xenophobic syndicate rooted in ancient Chimere disdain for outlanders, surged in the power vacuum. Their enforcers clashed with temple guards in the streets of Balmora, smuggling skooma and challenging ALMSIVI's edicts. Vivec descended incognito, his form cloaked in pilgrims' robes, to infiltrate their dens. Posing as a wandering bard, he sowed discord with subversive songs, verses that exposed the Tong's hypocrisy, turning members against their Dunmerry overlords. By dawn, the syndicate fractured, its leaders reciting Vivec's unwitting confessions before the Ordinator's blades. As the Third Era waned, Vivec's visions intensified, foretelling cataclysm. He beheld the Ministry of Truth, Bardao's prison, trembling in his weakening grasp. In a pilgrimage to the Ashlands, he communed with Azura once more, the Daedric Princes' twilight gaze piercing his illusions. "Your CHIM falters, Vech," she intoned, her voice like wind through ghost fence. Vivec, undaunted, composed the Twilight Lament, a poem that bridged mortal regret and divine resolve, preparing the faithful for the trials ahead. In these twilight years, Vivec's duality shone brightest, the warrior defending hearth and home, the poet illuminating the soul's hidden pathways. His lessons, once divine mandates, became guides for a people facing uncertainty, echoing through the canton nights like a lullaby against the encroaching dark. The Red Year erupted in 4E5, a fury born of severed divinity. With Vivec's power ebbed, Bardao crashed upon his city, igniting Red Mountain's fury in a blaze that reshaped Varvandel. Lava flows devoured the cantons, ash choked the skies, and the inner sea boiled with the land's anguish. Vivec, if he lingered in mortal form, vanished amid the inferno. Some accounts claim he stood atop the palace, reciting a final verse as flames consumed him. "In fire we are forged, in ash we dream anew." Exile swept across the Dwemer like a tide of ash, refugees fleeing to Solstime's rocky shores and Skyrim's borders, their temple relics clutched like fading dreams. The Empire, fractured by its own woes, offered scant aid. House Redoran rose from Windhelm's forges, their warriors clad in chiton and resolve, claiming stewardship of the scattered faithful. Yet, in the ruins, Vivec's presence lingered, not as flesh, but as echo. Pilgrims unearthed scorched codices from the lava-choked cantons, verses etched in unbreakable script. The city falls, but the poet's voice ascends the spires unseen. The new temple, born from the ashes in 4E10, reinterpreted ALMIV's legacy with scholarly fervor. Vivec was no longer the living god, but Saint Vec, the enlightened teacher whose CHIM inspired mortal striving. Dissident priests, vindicated by the cataclysm, compiled the Apocrypha, hidden lessons from Vivec's quill that delved into the forbidden arts of dreamwalking and zero-summing. These texts spread underground, fueling a renaissance among Dwemer exiles in Raven Rock, where bards recited them by firelight, their rhythms soothing the displaced souls. Vivec's warrior legacy manifested in the Argonian sack of 4E6. The An Ixalil, driven by centuries of grudge, poured from Black Marsh's swamps, sacking southern Morrowind while the Red Year raged. Dunmar plantations burned. Slavers turned slaves in ironic reversal. Though Vivec's direct hand was absent, his strategic teachings, guerrilla verses on adaptive warfare, guided Reteron's counterstrikes. In the flooded fields of Tyr, survivors whispered his canticles, turning despair into defiance. From the mud rises the unyielding reed, bending but unbroken. Across Tamriel, Vivec's influence rippled through arcane circles. The College of Winterhold studied his metaphysical duels, linking them to the Eye of Magnus's enigmas. Psychic envoys from Artaeum referenced his walking ways in their time-bending lore, crediting Vec with glimpses of the Amaranth, the state beyond CHIM, where gods birth universes. Even in Cyrodiil's white gold tower, emperors consulted annotated lessons during the Great War, drawing poetic tactics against the Aldmeri dominion. In Morrowind's fractured heart, the Sixth House cult persisted in shadows, twisted devotees dreaming of Doggoth Ur's return. Vivec's final warnings, preserved in Ashlander oral traditions, cautioned against such folly. The heart's silence is mercy. Heed not its phantom beats. These tales wove into Solstheim's skaldic songs, blending Nordic Thume with Dunmar verse, a cultural fusion born of exile. Archaeological expeditions in 4E20s delved Vardanfel's cooled craters, unearthing Vivec's suspended artifacts, the Muatra vials, glowing faintly, and murals of his hermaphroditic glory. These relics, housed in the Temple of the New Dawn in Blacklight, became sites of pilgrimage, where the faithful meditated on duality, warrior steel and poet's ink as one. As the Fourth Era unfolded into uncertainty, with dragons stirring in the north and Thalmor shadows lengthening, Vivec's eternal verse offered solace. He was the bridge between worlds, the god who taught that enlightenment lies not in power seized, but in the dream embraced. In quiet nights, when ash winds sigh through ruined towers, his words return, a lullaby for the weary, a battle cry for the bold, the warrior-poet forever etched in Tamriel's dreaming soul. Generations after the Red Year, in the shadowed academies of Blacklight and the wind-scoured halls of Raven Rock, Vivec's lessons evolved into living doctrine, adapted by scholars who pieced together the fragments of his divinity. The new temple's high inquisitors debated the Apocrypha in candlelit chambers, their voices rising and falling like the tides of the inner sea. These forbidden texts, smuggled from the old cantons, revealed Vivec's deeper philosophies, the art of love as warfare, where passion's arrows pierced the heart's armor, and the mystery of the tower, that enigmatic structure touching the void's edge. Pilgrims, drawn from across Tamriel, journeyed to the sites of his miracles, touching the ground where his footsteps once warded the blight,
feeling the faint pulse of Muatra in the soil. Vivec's warrior-poet duality inspired martial academies in the Telvanni spires, where young Dunmar trained not just in blade and bow, but in the rhythm of verse. Instructors recited Lesson 12 during dawn drills. Strike not with rage, but with the precision of a quill upon parchment, etching victory into the enemy's soul. These academies birthed a new generation of ordinators, their ebony pauldrons etched with poetic runes, ready to defend the reformed Morrowind against Thalmor incursions from the west. During the Great War's echoes in 4E 175, these warriors turned the tide at the Battle of the Ashen Pass, their chants disrupting Aldmeri mages' spells, a tactical poetry that echoed Vivec's ancient duels. In the frozen exile of Solstheim, where the Skal whispered of all maker spirits, Vivec's influence blended with Nordic lore. Ashlander shamans, intermarrying with the locals, wove his canticles into Thum practices, creating hybrid shouts that bent ash storms into protective veils. The Dragonborn, that prophesized hero of the Fifth Era's dawn, consulted Vivec's surviving scrolls in the Temple of Miraak, drawing strength from Vec's warnings against false gods. The dragon breaks not the wheel, but turns it anew, one verse proclaimed, guiding the hero through Apocrypha's labyrinths. Archaeological fervor peaked in 4E 201, as expeditions funded by the East Empire Company delved into Vardanfel's recovering wilds. Divers in the cooled lava tubes discovered the submerged remnants of Vivec's palace, its halls lined with murals depicting the tribunal's apotheosis. These frescoes, vibrant despite the submersion, showed Vivec in hermaphroditic splendor, one hand wielding Wraithguard, the other a blooming scriptorium. Artifacts like the suspended quill, said to write truths unspoken, were recovered, now displayed in the Museum of the Reborn in Necrom, drawing scholars who ponder their tonal resonances. Vivec's legacy extended to the arcane undercurrents of Tamriel. In the Somerset Isles, Altmer mystics critiqued his CHIM as a crude elven enlightenment, yet secretly emulated it in their crystal towers. The Bosmer of Valenwood incorporated his duality into the Green Pact, viewing the warrior-poet as a model for harmonious violence, hunting with songs that honored the prey spirit. Even in the frozen holds of Skyrim, where Talos worship clashed with tribunal echoes, bards in Riften's Bee and Bar traded tales of Vec, comparing him to the Ninth Divine's cunning. As the Fifth Era loomed with whispers of new prophecies stirring in the ash, Vivec's eternal verse remained a beacon. He taught that godhood was no distant throne, but the realization within every dreamer's heart. The warrior rising against the night, the poet scripting the stars. In the quiet hush before sleep, let his words envelop you, layers of myth unfolding, a lullaby of ash and ambition, where the unborn god whispers secrets to the waking world. In the ever-shifting sands of Tamriel's Fifth Era, where the echoes of the Dragonborn's triumphs fade into legend, Vivec's teachings find new voices among the wandering minstrels and hidden enclaves. The reformed Dunmar, scattered yet resilient, carry his verses in etched amulets and oral sagas, passed from elder to child around hearthfires in the rebuilt holds of Windhelm. These tales evolve, incorporating the dragon crisis. Vivec as the unseen ally, his CHIM a counterpoint to Alduin's world-eating hunger. The serpent devours its tail, but the poet rewrites the coil. A Solstheim elder might recite, linking Vec's wheel to the time dragon's maw. The Thalmor's resurgence stirs Vivec's warrior spirit in the collective memory. As Aldmeri agents infiltrate the eastern borders, seeking to purge heretical tribunal remnants, Dunmar resistance fighters draw from his lessons on asymmetric warfare. In the shadowed foyadas of reclaimed Vardanfell, guerrilla bands clad in scavenged bone mold chant the canticle of the hidden blade before ambushes, their strikes as precise as a poet's metaphor. These actions, chronicled in the New Temple's war annals, credit Vivec's duality: fight with the ferocity of a storm, but yield like ash to the wind, emerging renewed. Cultural renaissance blooms in the arts, with Vivec as muse. In Necrum's grand theaters, playwrights stage epics of the Tribunal's fall. Vivec portrayed as the tragic hermaphrodite, quill-dripping Muwatra onto the stage like divine tears. These performances, attended by elvens from all corners, blend Tamrilian tongues, Dunmar verse with Cyrodiilian drama, fostering uneasy unity. Artisans craft Muwatra-infused jewelry, said to grant glimpses of the walking ways, sold in Raven Rock's markets to pilgrims seeking enlightenment amid exile's grind. Arcanists in the Telvanni towers experiment with Vivec's tonal architecture, adapting Kagranak's tools to benign ends. Miniature Numidium simulacra, powered by poetic incantations, automate fungal farms, echoing Sothasil's clockwork but infused with Vec's mysticism. These innovations sustain the province, turning ashlands into verdant groves, a poetic reclamation of the Red Year scars. Beyond Morrowind, Vivec's influence seeps into the Empire's underbelly. In the Imperial City's arcade,
Forbidden seminars dissect the 36 lessons, scholars whispering of CHIM as the key to countering Daedric threats like the Oblivion Crisis's aftermath. Even the Khajiit of Elsewhere, with their moon-sugar visions, parallel his dream states to Ja Kajai, the moon beast dance, seeing Vec as a wanderer between reality. As eras blur and new prophecies stir, whispers of a second Nerevarine or tribunal revival, Vivec endures as the eternal enigma. His verse, a river carving canyons through time, invites all to the dream, warrior against oblivion, poet of the possible. In the hush of night, as sleep tugs at your edges, let Vec's words cradle you, unfolding infinities in the space between breaths. Deep into the Fifth Era's uncertain dawn, where the scars of old wars heal into fertile ground for new myths, Vivec's essence permeates the very winds that sweep across Tamriel's fractured map. In the rebuilt spires of Almalexia, once mournhold, now a beacon of resilient grace, scholars convene in the Hall of Echoing Verses, poring over digitized apocrypha on scrying orbs. Here, Vec is dissected not as deity, but as philosopher-king, his teachings on the amaranth inspiring theses that blend Dwemer mysticism with Aelid tonal magic. Young initiates, eyes wide with the glow of magica lanterns, recite passages from Lesson 36, pondering the Godhead's dream as a metaphor for collective awakening, a shield against the encroaching void. Vivec's warrior legacy ignites in the border skirmishes with the Thalmor, who brand his CHIM as anathema to the elven purity. Dwemer Rangers, descendants of the Ordinators, patrol the Velothi Mountains with blades inscribed in poetic script, runes that hum with latent power, disrupting illusion spells mid-cast. In the fog-shrouded passes of 4E250, a legendary ambush at the Whispering Caves turned the tide, fighters chanting Vec's ode to the unseen strike, their voices weaving a net of confusion that ensnared an entire Aldmeri vanguard. Tales of this victory spread like wildfire, immortalized in broadsheets from the Courier's Guild, painting Vec as the eternal tactician, his strategies timeless as the stars. Artistic fervor swells in the cultural crossroads of Riften, where Dwemer exiles mingle with Nord bards in mead-soaked taverns. Collaborative sagas emerge, fusing Vivec's hermaphroditic duality with Kind's breath, poems sung to lute and drum, evoking the warrior poet's fluid grace. These performances draw crowds from the imperial city's undercity, where thieves and mages alike find solace in his words on half-truths and clever deceptions, applying them to heists that outwit the Penitus Oculatus. In the arcane wilds of Vardenfell, now a tentative sanctuary under Rederaun's watchful eye, Telvanni mages resurrect echoes of Vivec's walking ways. Through ritual circles etched in glowing silt strider shells, they glimpse parallel Tamriels, worlds where the Tribunal never fell, where Nerevar walked beside them. These visions, shared in communal dream trances, foster a subtle unity, turning isolation into interconnected lore. Elders speak of Vec's final disappearance as ascension, not defeat, a deliberate step into the Godhead, leaving breadcrumbs for those bold enough to follow. As whispers of greater upheavals stir, Daedric pacts fracturing, ancient towers awakening, Vivec's verse stands as anchor. He reminds the weary that every ending births a stanza anew, the warrior's shield against despair, the poet's quills scripting hope. In the velvet hush of encroaching slumber, let his legacy unfold like pages in the night wind, a gentle tide carrying you to dreams of ash-kissed horizons and divine whispers. As the Fifth Era's tapestry unfurls with threads of rediscovery and quiet revolution, Vec's shadow lengthens across the cultural veins of Morrowind's reborn heartlands. In the verdant enclaves of the Grazelands, where silt striders roam under restored skies, communal gatherings honor Vec through the rite of the dual quill. Participants, from wide-eyed novices to weathered veterans, inscribe personal verses on leaves of shrum jelly, blending warrior oaths with poetic reflections, pledges to defend the ashborn kin, tempered by meditations on transience. These rituals, led by new temple adepts in robes woven from Quama silk, culminate in shared recitations at dusk, voices harmonizing like a distant chorus, easing the day's burdens into night's embrace. Vivec's influence ripples into the maritime trade routes, where Dwemer captains navigating the sea of ghosts etch his canticles into their longboats' prows. These inscriptions, glowing faintly under moonlight, are said to calm treacherous waters, invoking the poet's mastery over elemental chaos. Tales from Windhelm's docks speak of a 4E300 voyage, where a fleet beset by Draugr mists survived by chanting the canticle of the still sea, turning spectral howls into hushed waves. Such lore bolsters the East Empire Company's resurgence, with merchants peddling Vec's ink, amulets filled with preserved muatra, believed to sharpen wits in negotiations and fog-shrouded perils. In the arcane towers of Indoriel's fortified cities, debates rage over Vec's role in the unfolding prophecy of the Ashen Rebirth. Dissident priests, empowered by unearthed holocron fragments from the Clockwork City's fringes, argue that Vec's disappearance was a feint, a strategic retreat into the Godhead to orchestrate a tribunal's return. These texts, humming with Sothasil's mechanical cadence, describe walking ways portals reopening in times of dire need, allowing Vec to whisper guidance through dreams. Skeptics counter with Azura's warnings, but the faithful cling to hope, their evening vigils filled with verses that soothe the soul. Though the god sleeps, his dream awakens the sleeper. Artisans in the forges of Necrom innovate with Vivec's duality, crafting hybrid weapons, blades with hilts that double as styluses, inscribing runes mid-battle to bind foes in illusory verse. These poet swords see use in skirmishes against nomadic raiders from the Ashlander wastes, where warriors recite battle odes that demoralize enemies, echoing Vivec's subversion of the Kimona tongue. Bards traveling the caravan paths immortalize these feats in epic ballads, performed at way stations under starlit canopies, lulling traders into reverie with rhythms that blend steel's clang and ink's flow. Even in distant Hammerfell, where Redguard sword singers adapt Vivec's teachings to their Jokundan dances, his legacy fosters unlikely alliances. During joint expeditions against abyssal threats from the Abyssian Sea, Dwemer and Crowns exchange lore, finding common ground in the warrior poet's fluid philosophy.
As the era's mysteries deepen, with ancient Dwemer ruins stirring and Daedric whispers growing, Vivec remains the guiding light, his eternal verse a balm for the restless mind. Let it carry you now, through veils of myth and memory, into the gentle drift of slumber's shore. Venturing further into the Fifth Era's labyrinthine prophecies, where the threads of fate intertwine like vines in the blackwood, Vivec's apocrypha unveils layers of foresight that scholars in the hidden vaults of Balmora's undercroft now unravel with fervent care. These clandestine gatherings, illuminated by the soft hum of soul gems, explore Vec's veiled predictions of the Ashen eclipse, a cosmic alignment said to summon echoes of the Tribunal from the Godhead's margins. Adepts, their faces etched with ritual tattoos of script and sword, meditate on passages that describe Vivec's final act, not a vanishing, but a diffusion, his essence scattering like stardust to seed mortal enlightenment. Whispers circulate of dream visions shared among the faithful, where the warrior poet appears as a guiding specter, urging resilience against the gathering shadows of Merunus Dagon's lingering cults. In the bustling forges of Cragan Mar, where the clang of hammers sings in rhythmic cadence, Vivec's duality inspires a renaissance of enchanted armory. Blacksmiths, drawing from the lesson's martial metaphors, forge verse shields, ebony plates inscribed with protective canticles that deflect not just arrows, but the insidious tendrils of mind magic. During the border incursions of 4E 320, these artifacts proved invaluable. A cadre of House Indoril guards, reciting the ode of unyielding ink, held the line against Thalmor's soul trappers, their voices weaving barriers of poetic resolve. Veterans recount these clashes in taverns by the inner sea, their stories laced with awe, turning the evening's ale into a symposium of lore that lulls listeners toward introspection. Cultural exchanges flourish along the pilgrim roads to the Ghost Fence's remnants, now a verdant barrier overgrown with luminous fungi. Here Ashlander tribes host the festival of the Wandering Quill, inviting envoys from High Rock's Breton courts to share tales. Vivec's hermaphroditic wisdom resonates with the Durene's ancient gender-fluid rites, fostering dialogues on love's battlefield, passions as strategic as any siege. Bards from both lands collaborate on hybrid lays, sung to the strum of harps and the beat of guar-hide drums, evoking the poet's fluid grace in melodies that soothe the soul's tempests. Arcanely, In the reclusive spires of Tel Fur, mages harness Vivec's tonal manipulations to commune with the stars, adapting his CHIM meditations into scrying rituals that peer into the void's poetry. Visions of alternate histories emerge, worlds where the heart of Lorkhan beats eternal, or Nerevar's reincarnation walks beside a reformed ALMSIV. These insights, documented in illuminated codices, circulate among the Empire's fading academies, offering hope amid the slow unraveling of Cyrodiil's legions. As the era's enigmas deepen, with whispers of a new Nerevar stirring in the wastes, Vivec's eternal verse endures, a luminous thread in the dream weave. He invites you to embrace the warrior's vigilance and the poet's surrender, scripting your own stanza in the grand epic. In this tranquil interlude, as shadows lengthen and eyelids grow heavy, let his words drift like ash on the breeze, guiding you into the serene depths of repose. Pushing deeper into the Fifth Era's veiled horizons, where the auroras of the northern skies dance like forgotten gods in revelry, Vivec's legacy manifests in the nomadic caravans that traverse the throat of the world. These wandering troops, blending Dwemer exiles with Reachman shamans, preserve his canticles in oral tapestries woven during long winter nights. Around crackling bonfires, elders intone the canticle of the fractured mirror, a verse on self-duality that mirrors Vivec's hermaphroditic core, teaching that the warrior and poet within each soul must harmonize, lest the inner wheel shatter. These gatherings, under the watchful gaze of Kind's winds, foster bonds that heal old rifts, turning tales of tribunal glory into bridges across Tamriel's divides. In the shadowed academies of the Somerset Islands, where Altmer purists once scorned the barbarian ALMSIV, Vivec's CHIM seeps through cracked crystal lattices. Dissident mages, exiled to the fringes of Alinor, experiment with his walking ways in secret conclaves, crafting portals that echo the Godhead's whispers. One such rite, chronicled in the forbidden tome of echoed dreams, summons visions of Vec debating Anuil's will, his words a poetic salve against the Thalmor's rigid doctrines. These heretics, branded as Vivec shadows, smuggle insights back to Morrowind via the Ghost Sea, enriching the new temple's libraries and igniting philosophical fires that burn softly through the night. Maritime lore blooms in the ports of Anvil, where Colovian sailors etch Vivec's odes into their galleons' keels, invoking his mastery over the tides during voyages to Akavir's misty shores. Legends persist of a 4E350 expedition, where a captain, adrift in perpetual fog, recited the lesson of the silent current, parting the mists to reveal a hidden atoll brimming with ancient El-Nofei relics, tablets inscribed with proto-Tamrielic verse akin to Vec's own. Such discoveries fuel the Imperial Geographical Society's archives, where scholars pore over them by lamplight, their discussions a gentle murmur that lulls aides into contemplative repose.
These artifacts, traded along the Silk routes to distant Kathnoqui, weave Vivec's influence into the fabric of emerging empires. As the era's prophecies coalesce, hints of a dawning Sixth Era, with towers toppling and wheels turning anew, Vivec's eternal verse persists, a steadfast companion through uncertainty. He embodies the dreamer's art, forging paths with sword and syllable, yielding to the flow, yet shaping its course. In this hushed moment, as the world's weight eases from your shoulders, let his legacy envelop you like a silken shroud, drifting you toward the peaceful cadence of sleep's embrace. As the Fifth Era's chronicles swell with the ink of unforeseen alliances, Vivec's spirit stirs in the verdant labyrinths of Valenwood, where Bosmer wanderers adapt his lessons into their green-packed rituals. In the canopy-shrouded groves of Falinesti, Tree City nomads carve verses into bark with thorns dipped in sap, invoking Vivec's warrior-poet duality to balance hunt and harmony. These inscriptions, glowing with sylvan magica, guide arrows true while whispering odes of restraint, reminders that true strength lies in the poem of the wild's rhythm. During the Woodheart conclaves of 4E 380, Dunmar envoys joined the dances, sharing Vivec's tales of CHIM as a bridge to Y'ffre's shaping song, forging pacts that quelled border flares and wove new tapestries of lore under the whispering leaves. In the frost-kissed halls of the College of Winterhold, where the Eye of Magnus hums forgotten secrets, Nord scholars unearth Vivec's influence in ancient Nordic runes, paralleling his godhead dream to Shore's bloody wheel. Lectures by Hearthfire dissect the canticle of the half-light, applying its metaphors to aurora-veiled skirmishes against forsworn incursions. A pivotal thesis, penned by a Dunmar exile in 4E 400, posits Vivec as the poet of Sovgundar, his verses a key to navigating the afterlife's mists, insights that draw pilgrims from Skyrim's holds, their evening readings a soothing balm against the tundra's chill. Seafaring epics unfold in the ports of Wayrest, where Iliac Bay traders etch Vivec's odes onto enchanted compasses, said to point not just north, but toward one's destined stanza in the grand narrative. Legends from the 4E 420 trade winds speak of a merchant fleet, storm-tossed by Kinnereth's wrath, surviving by choral recitations of the lesson of the boundless horizon, waves parting like pages in a divine tome, revealing safe harbors laden with Yokudan spices and Aeliad artifacts. These voyages revitalize the Breton courts, where troubadours blend Vivec's mysticism with Balfira's tower lore, performances in gilded salons lulling nobles into dreams of eternal voyages. Amid Vardenfell's simmering core, where geothermal vents sigh like ancient breaths, alchemists brew muatra elixirs from Vivec-inspired recipes, elixirs that induce visions of the walking ways, blending ash and moon sugar for transcendent highs. Shared in communal rites under the twin moons, these potions foster empathy across divides, turning former foes into verse-weaving kin. Artisans craft lanterns from Dwemer brass, fueled by poetic incantations, casting lights that dance like Vivec's metaphors, illuminating paths through the encroaching dusk. As the era's veils thin, hinting at Sixth Era dawns with wheels remade and gods reborn, Vivec's eternal verse anchors the soul. He teaches the art of dreaming amid chaos, wield the sword of resolve, pen the quill of wonder. In this serene pause, as the day's echoes fade and twilight's hush descends, let his legacy cradle you, a gentle current bearing you to the starlit realms of slumber. Wandering into the sun-baked dunes of elsewhere, where the sands whisper secrets of the Jakaji's endless tales, Vivec's essence
filters through the main's prophetic gaze, blending his CHIM with the moon-sugar visions of the Khajiit. In the bustling bazaars of Rimmon, storytellers gather under striped awnings at twilight, reciting adapted lessons as Vivec's Whisker Odes, verses that dance like shadows on the dunes, teaching the art of the clever strike amid the caravan wars. These narratives, laced with purring rhythms and the scent of spiced moon sugar, inspire Thieves' Guild operatives to weave poetic diversions, outfoxing skooma barons with illusions born of Vec's half-truths. Pilgrims from the Anaquina highlands carry these tales westward, their evening chants a melodic hush that soothes the restless winds. In the vine-choked ruins of Cyrodiil's Colovian highlands, where the white gold tower's echoes linger like half-remembered dreams, Vivec's warrior-poet archetype revives in the Imperial Legion's reformed academies. Cadets, drilling by lantern light, study his canticle of the forged path, applying its strategies to counter Daedric incursions from the Oblivion Gate's faint scars. A famed maneuver from the 4E450 Heartland campaigns, dubbed Vivec Veil, saw legionaries faint with recited verse, drawing out cultists before striking with disciplined fury, their voices a shield against fear's grip. Veterans retired to vine-wrapped estates, sharing these exploits in fireside monologues that fade into the night's velvet quiet. Across the shimmering waves to the Somerset Isles' hidden coves, where the sea elves' ancient songs meet Vivec's tonal poetry, dissenting Outmer weave his teachings into forbidden symphonies. In underwater grottos of Pyandio-inspired design, bards strum crystal harps tuned to the godhead's hum, composing elegies that challenge the Dominion's orthodoxy. One clandestine opus, the Symphony of the Dual Crown, circulated in 4E470, sparked a subtle renaissance, with exiles fleeing to Morrowind's shores bearing scores that harmonize with Dunmar dirges, melodies that lull the soul amid the wave's eternal sigh. In Morrowind's core, where the Ghost Gate pulses with renewed wards, dreamweavers craft Vivec tapestries, woven illusions that replay his trials in hypnotic loops, aiding meditators to glimpse the amaranth. Shared in temple cloisters, these visions bridge past and future, fostering a quiet revolution of the spirit. As the Fifth Era's enigmas bloom like nocturnal flowers, Vivec's eternal verse illuminates the path. He is the dream sculptor, arming the vigilant heart, freeing the wandering mind. In this tranquil vale, as stars wheel overhead and breaths deepen, let his legacy enfold you, a silken verse guiding to slumber's welcoming arms. Drifting eastward to the mist-veiled spires of High Rock, where the Breton courts intrigued like verses in a half-written epic, Vivec's philosophy infiltrates the Durenni's arcane salons, reimagined as the quill of foresight. In the candlelit chambers of Daggerfall's royal library, nobles pore over translated lessons, debating Vec's CHIM as a key to unlocking the Adamantine Tower's deeper harmonies. These sessions, held under tapestries of woven stars, inspired diplomatic envoys to wield words as weapons in the Iliac's fractious politics, subtly shifting alliances with poetic rhetoric that echoes the warrior-poet's cunning. A notable accord in 4E480, the Treaty of the Silver Quill, averted war between Wayrest and Sentinel by invoking Vivec's duality, strength in unity, grace in concession. As the gatherings dissolve into midnight whispers, the air thickens with a serene hush, lulling courtiers toward reflective dreams.
In the volcanic underbelly of Morrowind, where obsidian veins pulse like the heart's own rhythm, Telvanni mages resurrect Vivec's tonal architecture in experimental spire towers. These structures, grown from fungal mycelium attuned to his canticles, shift forms with recited verses, walls blooming into gardens during peace, fortifying into bastions at peril's call, artifacts from the spires like the echoing codex, a book of living vellum that narrates personal prophecies, find their way to Ashlander camps where shamans use them in starlit councils. Visions of Vec guiding the Nerevarine reborn stir hopes, shared in rhythmic chants that blend drumbeats with lyrical flow, easing the nomad's vigils into tranquil repose. Across the frozen expanses of Solstheim, where the skull's ancient ways merge with Dunmar diaspora, Vivec's legacy thaws old animosities through the festival of the thawing verse. In the barred circles by the Temple of Mirok's ruins, storytellers intone adaptations of the 36 lessons, weaving them with all-maker lore to honor the warrior-poet's transcendence over tyranny. These tales, sung to the crackle of hearth fires, recount a 4th E500 pilgrimage where islanders, beset by ash storms, found solace in Vec's Ode of the Enduring Flame, winds dying to a whisper, revealing hidden hot springs that renew the land. Such miracles bolster communal bonds, the evening's harmonies, a gentle tide washing away the day's toils. In the ever-shifting dunes of Hammerfell, Redguard's sword poets incorporate Vivec's fluidity into their Shihai training, manifesting blades that sing verses mid-duel. These Vivec echoes turn battles into ballets of ink and steel, demoralizing foes with illusory stanzas. As the 5th era's symphony swells, Vivec's eternal verse resonates on. He is the eternal scribe, etching valor in the void, mercy in the melee. In this soft interlude, as embers dim and shadows embrace, let his legacy lull you, a whispered poem to sleep's eternal shore. Venturing into the craggy strongholds of Orsinium, where the Orsimer's unyielding forges echo like the heartbeat of Malakath's anvil, Vivec's warrior ethos finds fertile ground amid the clan's martial hymns. In the great hall of the City of Ash, under banners of etched steel and bone, chieftains adapt his canticle of the unbroken spear into forging rituals, hammers falling in sync with recited verses that imbue weapons with poetic resilience. These Vec-forged blades, said to sing of victory's grace even in defeat, arm the legions against encroaching marauders from the Hrothgarian wilds. A legendary clash in 4E520, the Battle of the Iron Quill, saw orc warriors, outnumbered by Skyrim raiders, turn the tide by choral defiance, voices rising like a storm, shattering enemy morale as if the words themselves were shields of mithril. As the fires banked low and warriors share need in the glow, their retellings weave a tapestry of quiet triumph, easing the soul toward the forge of dreams. In the lush paddies of Cathnoqui, where the Akaviri descendants till fields under the watchful eyes of serpentine idols, Vivec's diality inspires the Carpotun's meditative arts, blending his CHIM with Tiger Lord meditations.
In bamboo-shaded dojos by the misty rivers, masters inscribe lessons on rice paper scrolls, unrolling them during dawn rites to contemplate the poet god's transcendence over draconic tyranny. These practices yield verse claws, talons of enchanted jade that extend with lyrical intent, allowing duelists to parry strikes while etching haiku of harmony in the air. Pilgrims from the mainland, drawn by tales of a 4E 540 Enlightenment wave, return with hybrid philosophies, fostering trade routes that carry Vivec's whispers to Tamriel's heart. Conversations in lantern-lit inns fading into the night's gentle cadence. Back in Morrowind's spectral coasts, where the sea of ghosts laps at forgotten shrines, fisherfolk honor Vivec through the rite of the drifting stanza. Nets woven with silken threads of his poetry catch not just fish, but fleeting visions of the Godhead, shared in communal feasts by the shore. One such vision in 4E 560 foretold a harmonic convergence, uniting rival houses in a flotilla of verse-embossed longships, repelling abyssal horrors from the depths. These vessels, sails billowing like open codices, sail the inner sea, their crews murmuring odes that calm the waves' unrest. In the heart of the province, esoteric circles in Necrom's catacombs revive Vivec's hermaphroditic rites, blending alchemy with incantation to birth echo ords, crystals that replay his trials in holographic splendor, aiding seekers in balancing their inner polarities. Passed among the faithful, these orbs illuminate hidden chambers, their glow a soft beacon through the eternal night. As the Fifth Era's verses unfold, Vivec's eternal legacy endures, a luminous guide. He is the forge and the flourish, tempering the spirit, adorning the soul. In this peaceful hush, as the world's symphony softens and weariness yields, let his words carry you adrift to the boundless peace of sleep's verse. Turning northward to Skyrim's rugged heart, where the peaks of the Geral Mountains pierce the veil of eternal twilight, Vivec's poetic fire kindles in the mead halls of Falkreath, adapted by Nord skalds into sagas of the poet Thane. Around roaring hearths, bards strum lyres strung with dragonbone, reciting the canticle of the mountain echo, verses that resonate with Kain's breath, teaching warriors to strike with the precision of a quill's point. These tales, etched into runestones that weather the blizzards, inspire hold guards during the long night vigils of 4E 580, their choral defenses warding off Draugr hordes as if the words themselves summon the Aurora's shield. Veterans, scarred by the cold's embrace, gather in the hold's shadowed longhouses, their voices a low rumble that fades into the snow's hush, lulling listeners toward the dream forges of Sovngarde.
In the fetid mires of Black Marsh, where the hissed sap pulses like the veins of the world tree, Vivec's hermaphroditic wisdom merges with Argonian shadow dances, birthing the Vex coil rituals in the sunken ziggurats of Lil Moth. Shadow scales gliding through the murk inscribe his lessons on scale slates with bioluminescent inks, using the duality to master the art of the unseen strike. Coiling like serpents, uncoiling with lyrical fury. A clandestine rite in 4E600, amid the swamp's fevered mists, tribes unite against Anzilil zealots, their synchronized chants parting the fog to reveal hidden paths, echoing the godhead's dream. These gatherings, by glowing fungal lanterns, weave communal bonds. The night's croaks and whispers a soothing symphony into repose. Upon the wind-swept steps of the Reach, where the Forsworn's wild magics clash with ancient Ayleid echoes, Vivec's warrior-poet ideal fuels the hagraven's cauldrons of verse and venom. In the cliffside eyries of Markarth's underbelly, seers brew potions from his odes, visions that guide raids with poetic prophecies, arrows flying true to the rhythm of recited stanzas. Legends from the 4E620 uprising speak of a hag queen reciting the lesson of the fractured crown, shattering Dwemer automatons with a wave of enchanted rhyme, her coven emerging victorious under the blood moon. As embers die in their ritual fires, the chants soften, a maternal murmur drawing the weary to the earth's cradling arms. In Morrowind's ash-veiled academies, scholars compile the Vivec Codex Eternal, a living archive of evolving canticles, shared in moonlit symposiums that bridge mortal and divine. As the Fifth Era's tapestry expands, Vivec's verse remains the guiding star. He is the echo and the origin, voicing the silence, igniting the void. In this velvet twilight, as breaths align and eyelids weigh, let his legacy serenade you, a timeless lullaby to slumber's depths. Sailing westward to the uncharted vales of the sunken city, where the ancient Ayleid spires pierce the abyssal depths like forgotten quills, Vivec's tonal poetry echoes in the bioluminescent currents, adopted by merfolk exiles in their coral citadels. In the glowing halls of Devenor, woven from pearl and myrlore, sirens intone adaptations of the canticle of the deep dream, melodies that calm the Leviathan's rage, guiding schools of lightfish through the void's embrace. These hymns inscribed on seashell tablets that hum with inner light aid in the 4E640 abyss conclaves, where surface envoys from Somerset negotiate pacts against the encroaching kraken swarms, their voices merging with the tide's rhythm to forge alliances of wave and word. As the depth's pressures ease into a buoyant hush, the choruses fade, a submerged lullaby drawing divers toward the cradle of underwater slumber. In the shadowed bazaars of Senchal, where Yokudan ghosts mingle with the air's spice-laden haze, Vivec's warrior duality inspires the crown's sword dances, reimagined as the Vec's crescent blade. Under the dome of the old Alakir palace, dancers twirl scimitars etched with his verses, blades tracing arcs that symbolize the balance of conquest and creation. These performances during the 4E660 Festival of the Eternal Dune repel a Redguard schism with graceful ferocity. Foes disarmed not just by steel, but by the poetry's persuasive flow, turning battlefields into arenas of enlightened truce. Elders, seated on woven mats amid the cooling sands, recount these epics in velvety tones, the desert night stars a canopy for reflective repose. Beneath Morrowind's scarred crust, in the labyrinthine depths of the Telvanni underburrow, mushroom mages cultivate Vivec mycelia, fungal networks that propagate his lessons through spore whispers, linking distant enclaves in a web of shared visions. In the spore-lit chambers of 4E680, these tendrils facilitate the Great Convergence, where house rivals commune via hallucinogenic dialogues, resolving feuds with metaphors drawn from the Godhead's loom. The air, thick with earthy incense, carries the chant's resonance, fostering a mycelial harmony that soothes the mind's tangles. Farther afield, in the ethereal plains of Oblivion's fringes, where Daedric Princes' whispers tempt the bold, Vivec's CHIM defies the barriers, inspiring rogue champions to pen exile canticles that pierce the void. These tomes, smuggled back to Nairn, ignite scholarly fires in the arcane university's hidden vaults. As the Fifth Era's horizons broaden, Vivec's verse is the anchor and the sail. He is the depth and the dawn, plumbing mysteries, illuminating paths. In this serene intermission, as the world's pulse slows and dreams unfurl, let his legacy envelop you, a gentle verse to sleep's profound embrace. Gliding into the emerald canopies of Valenwood, where the walking trees of Gratwood sway like verses in the wind's own poem, Vivec's hermaphroditic grace entwines with the Bosmer's green pact, manifesting in the Vec's living canticle, rituals where Bosmery shamans etch his lessons onto bark scrolls that sprout leaves with each recitation. In the tea-top villages of Falinesti's nomadic groves during the 4E700 Wilder King conclaves, these scrolls guide the Pact's guardians against encroaching Colovian loggers, vines coiling with poetic intent to ensnare and enlighten foes, turning invaders into allies through whispered epiphanies. The air, perfumed with blooming nightshade, fills with harmonious chants that bind the forest's spirit, easing the guardian's watches into a leafy lull, where the rustle of leaves becomes a cradle song. In the sun-drenched vineyards of the Gold Coast, where Cyrodiil's southern hills roll like waves of ripened verse, Vivec's warrior-poet legacy ferments in the bardic cellars of Quach, blended into the Ode of the Gilded Vine. Vintners and minstrels, gathering under grape-laden arbors at harvest moons, compose ballads from his duality, songs that invigorate laborers by day and soothe with melancholic strains at night. A pivotal vintage in 4E720, the blood of the Godhead, infused with recited stanzas, fueled the peasant uprising against corrupt barons, their march a symphony of scythe and syllable that toppled tyrants without a single drop spilled in vain. As the cellar's lanterns dim and the earth's bounty yields its quiet, these tales flow like aged wine, drawing revelers toward slumber's vine-wreathed repose. Deep within Morrowind's volcanic heart, where the red mountain's fires smolder like the embers of creation's forge, alchemists of House Telvanni brew Vivec elixirs, potions distilled from his canticles, vapors that induce visions of the amaranth for those bold enough to sip. In the steam-shrouded labs of Tel Erun, during the 4E400 eclipse trials, these elixirs unite rival mages in a collective trance, unraveling the threads of the Tribunal's fall to weave new prophecies of renewal. The sessions, amid bubbling retorts and glowing runes, foster a profound communion, the alchemical hum, a rhythmic pulse that quiets the mind's tempests.
across the stars' distant gaze, in the void-touched realms of Apocrypha, where Hermaeus Mora's tentacles
wandering into the moonlit sands of elsewhere, where the Khajiit's caravan bells chime like the notes of a forgotten lute. Vivec's poetic duality harmonizes with the lunar lattice, birthing the Vex moon thread ceremonies in the shadowed bazaars of Rimmon. Caravan poets, their fur dusted with desert gold, weave his lessons into sugarcane tapestries that shimmer under Joan and Jode's gaze, guiding nomads through the Palatine Badlands with verses that map the stars' hidden paths. In the fourth E760 Night of the Sugar Poet, amid the spice-scented winds, these threads unraveled a Thalmor incursion, illusions of poetic phantoms, disorienting invaders, leading them astray into merciful mirages that fostered uneasy truces. As the caravans circle under the velvet sky, elders share these epics in purring cadences, the night's warmth a gentle veil, drawing wanderers to the dream webs of Azura. In the crystalline spires of the Somerset Isles, where Altmar scholars navigate the arcane tides like scribes of eternity, Vivec's CHIM infiltrates the Crystal Tower's vaults, reinterpreted as the quill of the Eldmeri Ascendant. In the luminous halls of Alinor, under domes of refracted light, mages transcribe his canticles onto ethereum leaves, debates raging in the fourth E780 Synod of the Godhead, philosophies that temper the Dominion's pride with Vec's merciful ambiguity, averting a schism with elven houses through dialogues of enlightened verse. These sessions, amid the hum of levitating tomes, illuminate paths to collective enlightenment, the tower's glow fading to a soft luminescence that invites repose. Beneath Morrowind's ashen veil, in the ancestral tombs of the Indoril heartlands, priests conduct the Vivec's vigil, eternal recitals of his trials etched into reliquary walls, where the faithful commune with echoes of the tribunal's glory. During the fourth E800 Ashen Renewal, these vigils summoned spectral guardians against volcanic unrest, their harmonious pleas stabilizing the Earth's fury with rhythmic resolve. The chambers, scented with incense and memory, foster a sacred quietude, the chants a soothing river to the soul's deeper currents. In the fractured mirrors of the Shivering Isles, where Sheogorath's madness dances on the edge of genius, Vivec's warrior-poet spirit manifests in the courtly follies of New Sheoth, inspiring jesters to pen mad canticles that balance chaos with cunning rhyme. As the fifth era's melody persists, Vivec's verse is the lattice and the lattice breaker. He is the moon and the shadow, guiding the lost, unveiling the veiled. In this silken dusk, as sands settle and stars align, let his legacy whisper you onward, a lunar lullaby to sleep's boundless realm. Drifting to the mist-shrouded coasts of High Rock, where the Breton courts of Daggerfall echo with the whispers of ancient kings, Vivec's hermaphroditic wisdom infuses the Durrani spires, evolving into the Vex mirror mask, pageants where nobles don masks of silver verse, reflecting the Godhead's duality in their intrigues. In the candlelit halls of Wayrest, during the 4th E820 masquerade of the fractured crown, these masks unraveled a conspiracy of shadowy guilds, illusions of poetic doppelgangers exposing traitors with lyrical precision, forging pacts of fragile peace amid the court's silken deceptions. As the festivities wane and the sea's murmur rises, courtiers retire to velvet chambers, their recitals a melodic fade into the night's embroidered dreams. In the jagged fjords of Solstheim, where the Skal's ancient stones stand sentinel against the ashland's creep, Vivec's warrior ethos merges with Allmaker lore, birthing the canticle of the first flame. Hunters gathered around the long fire in 4th E840's Great Thaw etch his lessons onto whalebone totems that ignite with inner resolve, repelling werebear incursions with spears that dance to recited rhythms, victories celebrated in feasts that honor the balance of hunt and harmony. The flame's crackle softens to embers, voices trailing into the wind's caress, lulling the tribe toward the Allmaker's starry vigil. Deep in Morrowind's forgotten citadels, where the 6th House's ruins cradle the Tribunal's faded altars, devotees enact the Vivec's silent reckoning, meditations that channel his CHIM through mirrored labyrinths, seekers navigating illusions to emerge reborn. In the 4th E860 Labyrinthine Awakening, these rites united scattered faithful against a resurgent Dagoth cult, their inner verses shattering false prophecies like glass under the Godhead's gaze. The paths, lit by ethereal glows, lead to sanctums of profound stillness, the echoes a serene pulse guiding the spirit home. Beyond Nirn's Vale, in the celestial forges of Aetherius, where the Ada's songs weave the fabric of fate, Vivec's eternal verse resonates as the Amaranth aria, inspiring wandering Ada to compose symphonies that trickle down as shooting stars, igniting mortal inspirations in the night sky. As the 5th Era's chorus swells, Vivec's verse is the mask and the mirror. He is the intrigue and the insight, unveiling truths, veiling the divine. In this misty twilight, as mists entwine and whispers cease, let his legacy cloak you, a silken verse to sleep's enchanted realm. Venturing into the sun-baked canyons of Hammerfell, where the Redguard blades sing against the anvil of the desert sun, Vivec's poetic ferocity sharpens the Elekir sword songs, reimagined as the Vex desert quill, odes inscribed on sun-bleached scrolls that guide nomad bladesmen through the wastes with verses of unyielding balance. In the wind-scoured dunes of 4th E880's Crown Renewal, these quills traced paths for the sword singers, their rhythmic strikes parrying a Yokudan phantom horde, enemies felled not by brute force, but by the harmonious deflection of fate's edge, birthing legends of merciful conquest. As the sun dips into the horizon's forge, warriors share these tales around flickering campfires. The sands sigh, a rhythmic backdrop, lulling them to the dream oases of Sotakal. In the frost-kissed halls of Markarth's Dwemer Undercity, where the Forsworn's wild chants clash with mechanical echoes, Vivec's duality inspires the Reach rune verses, carved into glowing Falmer crystals that pulse with his lessons. In the 4th E900 Stoneheart Uprising, these runes empowered the clan seers to harmonize with the city's automatons, poetic incantations reprogramming gears to turn against imperial overseers, forging a fragile alliance of stone and spirit. The depths hum quiets to a subterranean whisper, the crystal's light dimming like fireflies in repose, drawing the exiled to the earth's unyielding cradle. Within Morrowind's storm-swept coasts, where the sea of ghosts laps at Vardenfell's reborn shores, fishermen of the Dunmar enclaves invoke Vivec's tidal canticle. Nets woven with his words that catch not just fish, but omens from the deep. During the 4th E920 monsoon revelations, these canticles calmed a maelstrom summoned by rogue mages, waves parting like pages in a sacred tome to reveal lost artifacts of the Tribunal. The harbors misted with salt, easing into the verdant wilds of the Rift, where Skyrim's autumn leaves cascade like pages from an unbound grimoire. Vivec's poetic resilience takes root in the Nord's skaldic halls, flowering as the Vech's frost quill, runes etched on frost-kissed bark that warm the hearths of Ivarstead with verses of enduring duality. In the 4th E940 Harvest of the Godhead, these quills inspired bards to weave his lessons into shield songs, repelling a forsworn raid with harmonious shields that sang back the attacker's fury, turning arrows to whispers and throws to fellow travelers on the path of mercy. As the longhouse fires crackle low and the aurora's veil descends, storytellers intone these epics in rumbling tones, the winds howl softening to a blanket of northern repose. In the shadowed enclaves of Orsinium's rebuilt spires, where orc shamans forge codes of Malakoth with poetic fire, Vivec's warrior spirit ignites the iron canticle of the green poet, anvils ringing to rhythms drawn from his trials. During the 4th E960 Siege of the Eternal Forge, these canticles guided the Orsimir smiths to craft blades that balanced destruction with creation. Swords that cleaved enemy lines, yet inscribed peace upon the fallen, securing the city's sovereignty through tempered verse. The forge's glow fades to embers, the clangor yielding to the earth's steady breath, lulling the clan to dreams of unbreakable bonds. Amid Morrowind's reclaimed Badlands, where the ghost fence's echoes linger like half-remembered dreams, wanderers of the Ashlander tribes performed the Vech's Wanderer's refrain, campfire circles where his words are sung to the stars, guiding exiles back to sacred sites. In the 4th E980 Starfall Convocation, these refrains summoned meteor showers of insight, illuminating paths through the ash to rediscover lost Velothi shrines, their light a beacon against the encroaching void. The camps, ringed by flickering torches, host recitals that merge with the night's symphony, a nomadic hush drawing the weary to slumber's nomadic trail. In the whispering winds of the soul cairn, where the ideal master's chains bind the restless dead, Vivec's CHIM reverberates as the eternal echo, inspiring spectral scribes to etch verses that loosen the bonds, granting uneasy peace to wandering souls. As the 5th Era's saga unfolds, Vivec's verse is the frost and the flame. He is the forge and the frostbite, hardening resolve, melting barriers. In this russet twilight, as leaves drift and hearths dim, let his legacy embrace you, a skaldic lullaby to sleep's timeless vigil.
sailing into the icy fjords of Hofingar, where Skyrim's dragonborn echoes resound in solitude's marble halls. Vivec's poetic sovereignty aligns with the imperial city's northern kin, manifesting as the Vef's crown ode. Hymns carved into the blue palace's frost-rimed thrones that balance rule with revelation. In the fourth E1000, coronation of the enlightened Jarl, these odes empowered the court to navigate a civil war's brink, verses that disarmed assassins with illusions of merciful judgment, weaving rival houses into a tapestry of shared destiny under the Aurora's watchful eye. As the great hall's banners stir in the chill breeze and the long night settles, bards continue their strains in hushed tones, the sea's distant roar, a cradle for the realm's weary guardians. In the labyrinthine depths of Blackreach, where the Dwemer's forgotten glow orbs illuminate cavernous wonders, Vivec's duality inspires Falmery outcasts to etch subterranean canticles on luminous fungi, their blind eyes seeing through his words to the Godhead's core. During the fourth E1020 Glowstone Awakening, these canticles synchronized with ancient mechanics, repelling surface intruders with harmonious barriers that echoed poetic warnings, turning potential slaughter into enlightened retreats. The cavern's bioluminescent pulse slows to a gentle rhythm, the echoes fading like breaths in the vast underground, lulling the hidden folk to dreams of surfaced light. Across Morrowind's revitalized heartlands, in the grand bazaars of Vivec City reborn, merchants and mystics host the God King's market melody, stalls alive with his lessons bartered as enchanted wares, fostering trade that mends old divides. In the fourth E1040 Festival of the Rebuilt Spire, these melodies averted a merchant guild schism, songs that revealed hidden forgeries and forged bonds of trust amid the spice-laden air. The market's clamor softens as stars emerge, the melodies trailing into a marketplace hush, inviting traders to slumber's abundant bazaar. In the swirling vortices of Oblivion's deadlands, where Mehrunes Daigon's rage boils eternal, Vivec's warrior-poet defiance lingers as the rebellion rhyme, inspiring Daedric rebels to compose verses that fracture the prince's chains, sparks of CHIM flickering in the lava flows. As the Fifth Era's epic lingers, Vivec's verse is the crown and the cavern. He is the light and the labyrinth, illuminating paths, delving depths. In this glacial dusk, as fjords gleam and depths quiet, let his legacy enfold you, a sovereign lullaby to sleep's imperial realm. Wandering through the golden fields of the Gold Coast, where Cyrodiil's vineyards bloom under the sun's benevolent gaze, Vivec's poetic abundance infuses the imperial city's cultural revivals, blossoming as the Vec's harvest hymn, grapevines trained along trellises inscribed with his lessons, yielding wines that ferment wisdom in every sip. In the fourth E1160 vintage of the Godhead, these hymns guided vineyards to thwart a sabotage by rival houses, songs that bubbled in the barrels to reveal diluted poisons, transforming enmity into toasts of reconciliation amid the harvest moons. As the cellar's earthen scent rises and the day's labor fades, families gather for evening libations, the hymn's melody a vinous veil drawing them to slumber's fruitful vineyards. In the mist-veiled peaks of the Gerald Mountains, where the ancient Eilid ruins hum with forgotten magics, Vivec's duality echoes in the mountain mirror chants, sung by hermits who carve his words into snow-glazed crystals that reflect the soul's inner storms. During the 4th E1080 Summit of the Veiled Ones, these chants harmonized with spectral guardians, averting an avalanche of arcane unrest that threatened the passes. Illusions of poetic avalanches redirecting the flow to merciful meadows. The height's crisp air stills as twilight claims the ridges, the chants dissolving into the wind's soft sigh, lulling the ascetics to dreams of elevated peace. In the bustling ports of Senchol, where the elsewhere trade mingles with Cyrodiilic commerce, sailors of mixed heritage invoke Vivec's trade tide, anchors etched with his canticles that steady ships through the Abyssian's whims. In the 4th E1100 monsoon accord, these tides parted tempests brewed by pirate mages, revealing safe harbors and forging pacts that sweetened the seas with shared prosperity. The docks, alive with the lap of waves and scent of exotic cargoes, host twilight shanties that ebb with the tide, a maritime murmur guiding crews to rest's steady current. In the ethereal plains of the fields of regret, where nocturnal shadows weave eternal night, Vivec's warrior-poet light pierces as the nocturne of the nightingale, inspiring shadowy thieves to pen verses that steal not gold but glimpses of CHIM, easing the prince's grasp on bound souls. As the 5th era's bounty ripens, Vivec's verse is the vine and the vista. He is the harvest and the height, nurturing growth, scaling summits. In this amber twilight, as
drifting through the sun-dappled canopies of Valenwood, where the walking trees of Falinisty sway to the Bosmer's ancient rhythms, Vivec's poetic harmony entwines with the green pact, emerging as the Vec's canopy canticle, vines woven with his words that guide the wild hunt through the forest's verdant maze. In the 4th E1120 Migration of the Godhead, these canticles directed the Three Thanes to redirect a rampaging Spriggan horde, verses that lulled beasts into merciful slumber rather than slaughter, preserving the pact's balance amid the rustling leaves. As the canopy's shadows lengthen and the evening chorus of cicadas rises, hunters gather in woven bowers, their songs a leafy lullaby fading into the wood's eternal whisper. In the coral-crusted depths of the Abyssinian Sea, where the Mormor's seafaring exiles navigate treacherous currents, Vivec's warrior essence surfaces in the tidal throne verses, inscribed on driftwood relics that command the waves with dual grace. During the 4th E1140 Storm of the Enlightened, these verses calmed a Pyndonian invasion fleet, verses that lulled beasts into merciful slumber rather than slaughter, preserving the pact's balance amid the rustling leaves. As the canopy's shadows lengthen and the evening chorus of cicadas rises, hunters gather in woven bowers, their songs a leafy lullaby fading into the wood's eternal whisper. Within Morrowind's volcanic heart, amid the fiery vents of Red Mountain's tamed fury, alchemists of the new tribunal distill the Vivec's ember elegy, potions brewed with his lessons that temper magma flows into healing elixirs. In the 4th E1160 Eruption of Mercy, these elegies quenched a cataclysmic outburst, vapors forming visions that guided evacuees through ash-choked paths, forging resilience from ruin. The crater's glow softens to twilight embers, the elegies hum a subterranean soothe, inviting survivors to rest's molten repose.
In the fractured realms of Apocrypha, where Hermaeus Mora's tentacles hoard forbidden tombs, Vivec's CHIM infiltrates as the seeker's sonnet, inspiring black book scribes to compose verses that unravel the prince's enigmas, threads of enlightenment weaving through the ink-black seas. As the Fifth Era's foliage flourishes, Vivec's verse is the canopy and the current. He is the pact and the potion, guarding groves, healing heats. In this verdant vesper, as branches bow and waters still, let his legacy shelter you, a sylvan lullaby to sleep's forested dream. Gliding across the crystalline spires of Somerset, where the Altmer's arcane symmetries pierce the eternal dawn, Vivec's poetic perfection resonates in the crystal tower's vaults, crystallizing as the Vec's lattice lyric, filigreed lattices etched with his dual truths that refract light into prismatic prophecies. In the 4th E1180 Synod of the Godhead, these lyrics aligned the mage's rituals to avert a dimensional rift, verses bending reality's weave to mirror merciful illusions, binding warring factions in a lattice of enlightened accord. As the isle's glow dims to pearl twilight and the sea's silk whispers rise, scholars recite in vaulted chambers. The lyrics chime a crystalline caress, lulling them to dreams of flawless form. In the mist-shrouded moors of High Rock, where the Bretons' Durrani courts intrigue with veiled enchantments, Vivec's warrior-poet intrigue blooms in the Durrani duet, woven into tapestry looms that depict his trials as threads of fate. During the 4th E1200 Masque of the Enlightened, these duets unraveled a courtly conspiracy. Songs that transposed betrayers' plots into harmonious dances, swords sheathed in verse, alliances forged from the loom's gentle spin. The keep's candlelight flickers low, the duet's melody mingling with the moor's wind sigh, drawing nobles to slumber's embroidered veil. Along Morrowind's eastern frontiers, in the Silk Road oases where Khajiit caravans cross into the province, traders blend Vivec's caravan canto, banners fluttering with his words that guide moon-sugar routes through bandit shadows. In the E4220 Eclipse Exchange, these cantos illuminated hidden ambushes, rhythmic calls turning foes to partners in the night's bazaar, spices and secrets shared under the Jah-Kajai's gaze. The oasis' palms rustle softly as stars wheel, the cantos fading to a caravan hush, inviting wanderers to rest's moonlit caravan. In the churning chaos of Cold Harbor, where Molag Bal's chains drag souls into despair, Vivec's CHIM defies as the domination dirge, inspiring chained poets to sing verses that erode the prince's dominion, sparks of sovereignty flickering in the frozen voids. As the Fifth Era's symmetries shine, Vivec's verse is the lattice and the loom. He is the light and the lore, refining realms, threading truths. In this opalescent dusk, as spires gleam and moors mist, let his legacy illuminate you, a melodic lullaby to sleep's symmetric sanctuary. Venturing into the storm-swept crags of the Reach, where Skyrim's forsworn dance with ancient magics under thunderous skies, Vivec's poetic rebellion stirs in the Vec's thunder triad, totems of woven briars inscribed with his lessons that channel lightning into lyrical bolts. In the fourth E1240, Storm of the Godhead, these triads empowered the clan's hagravens to redirect a Nord incursion. Verses that transmuted arrows into raindrops and war cries into harmonious gales, foes fleeing to the mercy of misty veils. As the crag's echoes fade and the storm's patter softens to a gentle drizzle, shamans circle their fires, the triads rumble a thunderous hush, lulling them to dreams of untamed skies. In the sun-baked dunes of Hammerfell, where the Redguard sword-singers hone blades in the Alakir's endless sands, Vivec's warrior essence forges the desert dual dirge, scimitars engraved with his dual rhythms that clash not to kill, but to compose. During the fourth E1260 Caravan of the Enlightened, these dirges parried a bandit onslaught, songs that mirrored attackers' strikes into self-reflective duels, surrendering sands swallowing strife in waves of poetic truce. The dune's heat yields to cooling twilight, the dirges echo a sandy Cicerus, drawing warriors to slumber's arid embrace. In the verdant groves of Greatwood, where Valenwood's Bosmer weaves spells from the green, pilgrims invoke Vivec's grove gospel, sacred groves where his words bloom as luminescent flowers that illumine the heart's hidden paths. In the fourth E1280, Bloom of Mercy, these Gospels guided a lost expedition through entangling vines, petals unfolding visions that led to water sources and wove alliances with wary wood spirits. The grove's foliage sighs in the evening breeze, the Gospels glow a floral fade, inviting wayfarers to rest's leafy sanctuary. In the labyrinthine libraries of the Shivering Isles, where Sheogorath's madness spirals in eternal revelry, Vivec's CHIM manifests as the madness madrigal, inspiring golden saints to pen verses that temper lunacy with lucid duality, threads of sanity weaving through the ink-black seas. As the fifth era's tempests turn, Vivec's verse is the thunder and the tide. He is the storm and the song, raging realms, soothing sands. In this tempestuous twilight, meandering along the frost-kissed shores of Winterhold, where Skyrim's mages peer into the void from the college's spires, Vivec's poetic insight illuminates the Vex Aurora anthem, auroral veils scripted with his words that dance across the northern lights, revealing arcane secrets in their spectral glow. In the fourth E1300 Rift of the Godhead, these anthems synchronized with the Eye of Magnus, tempering its volatile surge with verses that wove illusions of harmonious horizons. Rival scholars united in the light's embrace, averting cataclysmic collapse. As the borealis fades to midnight's velvet and the sea's ice cracks softly, apprentices retire to turret beds. The anthems shimmer a celestial soothe, guiding them to slumber's starry vigil. In the labyrinthine canals of Lilmoth, where black marshes Argonian tribes navigate the swamp's enigmas by torchlight, Vivec's duality emerges in the hissed harmony, tree-root carvings pulsing with his lessons that synchronize the sap's flow with communal dreams.
During the 4th E1320 flood of the Enlightened, these harmonies directed the water's wrath away from villages, rhythmic pulses forming barriers of woven vines. Intruders from the shadows swayed to the marsh's merciful murmur. The canal's mist rises thick in the humid dusk. The harmonies thrum, a swampy serenade, drawing the scaled folk to rest's watery womb. Amid the opulent halls of Alinor, where Somerset's high elves orchestrate symphonies of sorcery, courtiers compose the Vivec's Symphony Sonata, orchestras tuned to his canticles that resonate through the palace's marble veins. In the 4th E1340 recital of Revelation, these sonatas unraveled a veiled coup, melodies transposing daggers into doves and plots into preludes of peace. Thrones secured by the swell of enlightened applause. The echoes of the halls soften as lamps dim, the sonata's cadence a symphonic sigh, lulling the elite to dreams of melodic majesty. In the verdant expanses of the soul cairn, where the ideal masters hoard essences in eternal twilight, Vivec's CHIM whispers as the soul serenade, inspiring spectral poets to intone verses that loosen the cairn's grasp, flickers of freedom blooming in the ashen fields. As the 5th era's lights linger, Vivec's farce is the aurora and the anthem. He is the insight and the immersion, unveiling voids, harmonizing havens. In this nocturnal nuance, as lights linger and mists meld, let his legacy envelop you, a spectral lullaby to sleep's enlightened ether. Wandering the geothermal vents of Eastmarch, where Skyrim's ashlands meet the sea of ghosts in steamy vales, Vivec's poetic warmth kindles in the Vex steam saga. Geysers etched with his dual flames that harness the earth's fury into vaporous visions. In the 4th E1360 thaw of the Godhead, these sagas tempered a volcanic tremor threatening Windhelm, verses condensing steam into shields that redirected lava flows. Raiders from the north turned allies in the haze of merciful mists. The vent's hiss softens to twilight's murmur, and the aurora's fringe dances. Nords huddle by hearthstones, the saga's steam a warming whisper, lulling them to dreams of thawed horizons. In the shadowed alleys of Orsinium, where the orc's forges roar with unyielding craft, Vivec's warrior-poet forge tempers the Malakath's mirror melody, anvils ringing with his lessons that reflect strength in symmetry. During the 4th E1380 siege of the Enlightened, these melodies mirrored besiegers' assaults back upon themselves, illusions of poetic parries forging truces from the clang of spared steel, strongholds standing in harmonious hold. The forge's glow dims as embers settle, the melodies ring a metallic murmur, drawing smiths to slumber's iron repose. Along the obsidian shores of Vardenfell's reborn coasts, where mushroom towers pierce the recovering skies, pilgrims etch Vivec's shore shanty, wave-worn stones inscribed with his canticles that calm the inner sea's restless tides. In the 4th E 1400 Tide of Mercy, these shanties parted a tsunami born of ancient grudges, songs summoning schools of Kwama to buoy the stranded, weaving survivors into the web of communal renewal. The shore's spray fades in the cooling eve, the shanty's rhythm a tidal tease, inviting islanders to rest's saline sanctuary. In the luminous gardens of Moonshadow, where Azura's twilight blooms eternal dusk, Vivec's CHIM blooms as the twilight triptych, inspiring prophetic poets to intone prophecies that soften the prince's veils, petals of possibility unfurling in the scented gloam. As the 5th era's vapors veil, Vivec's verse is the steam and the strike. He is the saga and the song, warming wastes, mirroring might. In this vaporous vesper, as vents veil and forges fade, let his legacy infuse you, a melodic lullaby to sleep's forged dream. Treading the vine-choked ruins of Cyrodiil's Colovian highlands, where the empire's faded banners flutter in the wind-swept wilds, Vivec's poetic reclamation stirs in the Vec's ruin refrain, overgrown arches inscribed with his words that coax stone to bloom with resilient vines. In the 4th E 1420 rebirth of the Godhead, these refrains animated the Aeoliad relics to repel a marauding warband, verses transforming thorns into tender guides that led invaders to forgotten wells of peace, empires echoing in the mercy of mended masonry. As the highlands' dusk drapes the hills in lavender, and the river's ripple quiets, wanderers settle among the ruins. The refrains rustle, a verdant veil, drawing them to slumber's reclaimed repose. In the arid expanses of elsewhere's Palatine, where the Khajiit clans prowl under the twin moon's watchful gaze, Vivec's duality purrs in the moonlit main madrigal. Claw-marked sands scripted with his lessons that aligned caravans' paths with lunar lore. During the 4th E 1440 Caravan of the Enlightened, these madrigals lured sugar smugglers into moon-shadow parleys, songs that mirrored their cunning into cooperative caravans. The desert sands cool under the moon's descent, the madrigal's mule a feline fade, inviting the plod kin to rest's nocturnal nest. Within the floating citadels of the Somerset Isles' outer reaches, where Altmar sky sages commune with the stars, astronomers chart the Vivec's stellar stanza, constellations rearranged by his canticles into patterns of prophetic duality. In the 4th E 1460,
drifting through the gilded spires of solitude, where Skyrim's imperial echoes linger in the Blue Palace's halls, Vivec's poetic sovereignty graces the Vec's throne Toccata. Thrones carved with his dual crests that harmonize the winds of rule with merciful moderation. In the 4E 1480 coronation of the Godhead, these toccatas transmuted a succession strife into a symphony of shared scepters, verses veiling daggers in diplomatic dances, crowns claimed in the cadence of enlightened equity. As the palace's lanterns lower and the Karth's whisper winds down, courtiers withdraw to velvet chambers, the toccatas trill a regal repose, lulling them to dreams of balanced thrones.
In the mist-veiled vales of the Nibene Basin, where Cyrodiil's heart beats with imperial intrigue and vine-clad villas, Vivec's warrior-poet legacy blooms in the Vivec's vine vignette, trellises twined with his lessons that guide the grapevine's growth into glyphs of guidance. During the 4E 1500 harvest of the enlightened, these vignettes diverted a poisoned plot amid the vineyards, illusions of poetic pollination turning toxins to tonic, feasts flowing from the mercy of mended malice. The vale's fog thickens at twilight's touch, the vignette's vine of verdant hush, drawing vintners to slumber's fermented fold. Amid the whispering winds of the adamantine tower, where the Aeliad's ancient echoes pulse in eternal vigilance, Vivec's CHIM resonates as the tower's timeless trope, spires scripted with verses that bend time's threads into tapestries of tolerant truths. In the 4E 1520 summit of symmetry, these tropes tempered a temporal tear, songs synchronizing the tower's guardians to weave rifts into revelations, eternity echoing in harmonious hold. In the shadowy sanctums of Apocrypha, where Hermaeus Mora's tentacles coil through forbidden tomes, Vivec's verse unfurls as the knowledge knell, inspiring seekers to intone canticles that pierce the prince's veils, glimmers of guarded gnosis glowing in the ink-black depths. As the Fifth Era's thrones turn, Vivec's verse is the toccata and the trope. He is the sovereignty and the shadow, crowning courts, cultivating cunning. In this veiled vesper, as spires still and vines veil, let his legacy soothe you, a trochaic lullaby to sleep's timeless tide. Sailing the mist-shrouded bays of High Rock's Iliac, where Breton courts intrigue amid the crashing waves and castle crags, Vivec's poetic diplomacy drifts in the Vec's wave waltz, lighthouses limned with his canticles that choreograph the tides into dances of delicate accord. In the 4E 1540 Accord of the Godhead, these waltzes wove a naval skirmish into a flotilla of fellowship, verses veiling catapults in cascades of conciliatory foam, fleets fusing in the mercy of mirrored masts. As the bay's breakers soften to a silvery sigh, and the fog's fingers fold the horizon, sailors moor to lantern-lit lofts, the waltzes wave a watery whisper, lulling them to dreams of nautical nuance. In the sun-dappled orchards of Gold Coast's groves, where Cyrodiil's southern sunsets paint the lemon trees in amber, Vivec's duality ripens in the Vivec's Orchard Ode. Branches bowed with his lessons that orchestrate the fruit's fall into patterns of plentiful peace. During the 4E 1560 Bounty of the Enlightened, these odes outwitted orchard outlaws, illusions of poetic plenty turning raids to reaping rituals. Harvests harvested in harmonious hands. The grove's leaves rustle in the evening's ease, the ode's orchard a fruity fade, inviting tillers to rest's sun-warmed soil. Upon the jagged peaks of the Velothi Mountains, where Morrowind's ash storms swirl in eternal vigilance, Vivec's peak psalm summons the winds to whisper warnings of wisdom's weight. In the 4E 1580 Ascent of Mercy, these psalms parted a pyroclastic pall, songs shaping ash unto avian allies that bore the beleaguered to basilicas of balm, mountains moved by the murmur of merciful might. The peak's winds wane as stars speckle the sky, the peak's psalm a powdery hush, drawing devotees to slumber's elevated ether. In the verdant vaults of the clockwork city,
where Sotasil's mechanisms tick in precise perpetuity, Vivec's CHIM clicks as the mechanism motet, inspiring factotums to harmonize gears with his dual dirges, cogs of creation turning in tandem with the god's graceful grind. As the fifth era's waves wash, Vivec's verse is the waltz and the wisdom. He is the diplomacy and the dirge, charting currents, crowning crests. In this wave-like wonder, as bays balm and peaks pacify, let his legacy wash over you, a wavy lullaby to sleep's orchestrated oasis. Venturing into the labyrinthine libraries of Markarth's Understone Keep, where Skyrim's Dwemer echoes hum in the stone's silent depths, Vivec's poetic ingenuity illuminates the Vex labyrinth litany, tunnels traced with his verses that twist the shadows into threads of thoughtful traversal. In the 4E 1600 Descent of the Godhead, these litanies lured lost legionaries from the depths, illusions of poetic paths parting pitfalls into portals of preserved passage. Ruins resound with the relief of redeemed resolve. As the keep's braziers burn low and the earth's murmur mellows, scholars shelve tomes in torchlit alcoves, the litany's labyrinth a lingering lull, drawing them to dreams of delving depths. In the sun-scorched sands of Hammerfell's Alikure Desert, where Redguard blades dance with the dune's shifting sighs, Vivec's warrior-poet stride echoes in the Vivec's dune dirge, wind-whittled obelisks inscribed with his lessons that direct the caravans through mirage-masked mercy. During the 4E 1620 Mirage of the Enlightened, these dirges dissolved a sandstorm siege, songs summoning spectral sails to shelter the stranded, swords sheathed in the symphony of sated survival. The dune's daystar dips to dusty twilight, the dirges dune a desert drift, inviting wanderers to rest's arid embrace. Beneath the canopy of Valenwood's Gratwood, where Bosmer treetops entwine in eternal entanglement, Vivec's duality sways in the Vivec's cantal Kent, vines veined with his canticles that choreograph the forest's frenzy into foliage of forgiving flow. In the 4E 1640 Entanglement of Mercy, these cants untangled a tribal tangle, verses weaving warring webs into woven welcomes, trees testifying to the tenderness of tempered ties. The canopy's chorus quiets as leaves loosen their light, the cant's canopy a leafy hush, lulling the wood-wisps to slumber's sylvan sanctuary.
In the crystalline caverns of the Shivering Isles, where Sheogorath's madness manifests in manic mirth, Vivec's CHIM chuckles as the madness madrigal, inspiring sibyls to sing stanzas that soothe the Daedric delirium, blooms of balanced whimsy budding in the butterscotch blaze. As the fifth era's sands shift, Vivec's verse is the litany and the lull. He is the labyrinth and the leaf, guiding gloom, greening groves. In this desert dusk, as tunnels tame and canopies calm, let his legacy linger, a lilting lullaby to sleep's shadowed shade. Slithering through the fetid fens of Blackmarsh's murkmire, where Argonian shadows slip amid the hist's humming haze, Vivec's poetic permeation pulses in the Vex fen fable, mangrove roots runed with his verses that ripple the muck into mirrors of merciful metamorphosis.
In the fourth E1660 awakening of the Godhead, these fables fermented a fungal frenzy into a feast of fellowship, illusions of poetic pods parting poisons into potions of preserved peace, swamps sinning in the subtlety of sated scales. As the fen's fog folds at dusk's damp draw, tribesmen tether to tree hollows, the fen's fable a fetid fade, lulling them to dreams of marshy musing. In the craggy cloisters of the reach's Carthspire, where forsworn flames flicker in forsworn fury, Vivec's warrior-poet will weaves the Vivec's reach rhapsody, stones scored with his lessons that redirect the river's rage into rhythms of reluctant reconciliation. During the fourth E1680 uprising of the enlightened, these rhapsodies routed a ritual rampage, songs summoning spectral steeds to steer the storm into sanctuaries of shared sovereignty, cloisters calming in the cadence of seeded crowns. The spire's sparks settle as stars streak the sky. The rhapsodies reach a rocky hush, drawing the wildkin to slumber's earthen echo. At top the auroral arches of Winterhold's College, where mages murmur amid the northern night's northern glow, Vivec's duality dazzles in the Vivec's arcane aria. Warded walls woven with his canticles that channel the chaos into choruses of controlled clarity. In the fourth E1700 Rift of Mercy, these arias averted an arcane apocalypse, verses veiling vortices in veils of visionary variance, towers tolling in the triumph of tempered tomes. The college's candles gutter low, the aria's arcane a shimmering sigh, inviting the spellweavers to rest's magical mist. In the gilded galleries of the white gold tower, where Cyrodiil's emperors enthrone eternal empires, Vivec's CHIM crowns as the empire's eternal elegy, inspiring augurs to intone stanzas that soften the spire's stern symmetries, gleams of grand governance glowing in the golden gloam. As the fifth era's fens flood, Vivec's verse is the fable and the fire. He is the fen and the frost, mirroring muck, mending might. In this rhapsodic reverie, as swamps soothe and reaches rest, let his legacy resonate, a resonant lullaby to sleep's spectral sanctuary. Wandering the war-torn warrens of Orsinium's undercity, where orcish forges roar in resilient rage, and the mountain's maw mocks the meek, Vivec's poetic prowess pounds in the Vex forge fugue. Anvils etched with his verses that temper the flames into forges of forgiving fortitude. In the fourth E1720 forging of the Godhead, these fugues fused a factional feud into a fellowship of forged fealty. Illusions of poetic pyres parting pacts of preserved prowess, hammers hushed in the harmony of hammered hope. As the warren's warmth wanes and the coal's crackle cools, smiths sheathe tools in soot-streaked stalls, the fugues forge a fiery fade, lulling them to dreams of mallet-mended might. In the frost-fringed fjords of Skyrim's sea of ghosts, where Nordic longships lurch amid the Leviathan-lashed waves, Vivec's duality drifts in the Vivec's fjord fanfare.
icebergs inscribed with his lessons that guide the gales into gusts of gentle guidance. During the 4th E1740 tempest of the enlightened, these fanfares foiled a frozen flotilla's frenzy, songs summoning spectral sails to steer the storm into sanctuaries of sated seafaring, fjords freezing in the finesse of favored flows.
The sea's swells subside to a silvery swell, the fanfare's fjord a frosty hush, inviting the icebound to rest's watery whisper. Amid the blooming bazaars of elsewhere's Aniquina, where Khajiit merchants mule under the moon's mercurial gaze, Vivec's warrior-poet Whimsy weaves the Vivec's Bazaar Ballad, stalls strung with his canticles that barter the brawls into bargains of benevolent barter. In the 4th E1760 Market of Mercy, these ballads balanced a bizarre blockade, verses veiling vendettas in veils of visionary value, caravans converging in the cadence of cooperative coin. The bazaar's bustle bows to the night's nimble nudge, the ballad's bazaar a bustling balm, drawing the moonlit merchants to slumber's silken stall. In the labyrinthine lairs of Lorkhan's lost heart, where the heart's heartbeat haunts the hidden hollows, Vivec's CHIM chambers as the heart's hidden hymn, inspiring echoes to entwine with his dual dirges, pulses of primordial peace pounding in the profound pulse. As the 5th E's forges flare, Vivec's verse is the fugue and the frost. He is the forge and the fjord, tempering trials, taming tides. In this ballad's balm, as warrens warm and seas still, let his legacy buoy you, a buoyant lullaby to sleep's boundless bay. Traversing the twilight thickets of Somerset's isles, where Altmer spires pierce the perpetual dawn, and the aurora's arc in ancestral arrogance, Vivec's poetic precision pricks the pride in the Vex thicket theorem, groves girded with his verses that theorem the thorns into theorems of tempered transcendence. In the 4th E1780 Reckoning of the Godhead, these theorems thwarted a theocratic tumult, illusions of poetic prisms parting prejudices into portals of profound parity, thickets thriving in the tranquility of transfigured throne. As the isle's incandescence dims to a dreamy dusk, sages settle in silken studies, the theorem's thicket a thorny hush, lulling them to dreams of enlightened entanglement. In the labyrinthine lagoons of the Somerset shallows, where sea elves skim the surface in swift skiffs under starlit sails, Vivec's duality dances in the Vivec's lagoon lament, corals carved with his lessons that lament the lagoons into laments of luminous leniency. During the 4th E1800 Tide of the Enlightened, these laments lured a Leviathan legion from the depths, songs summoning spectral swells to sweep the strife into sanctuaries of sated serenity, lagoons lapping in the lull of liberated leagues. The shallows' shimmer softens to a silvery sigh, the lament's lagoon a liquid lull, inviting the wave-weavers to rest's rippling repose. Within the veiled vaults of the Psijic Order's eye, where Artaeum's mists mask the mysteries of time's tangled threads, Vivec's warrior-poet wisdom whispers the Vivec's vault vision, arches arrayed with his canticles that vision the voids into visions of veiled valor. In the 4E 1820 Enigma of Mercy, these visions veiled a vortex of vanished voyagers, verses weaving the warp into wefts of welcoming warmth, vaults vibrating in the victory of visionary vows. The eye's ether ebbs as evening envelops, the vision's vault a veiled hush, drawing the mystic minds to slumber's spectral sphere. In the shadowed shards of the void's veiled verge, where nocturnal's nightingales nest in nothingness, Vivec's CHIM calls as the void's veiled vesper, inspiring shades to shadow his dual dirges, wisps of whispered wonders weaving in the whispering wind. As the Fifth Era's thickets thrive, Vivec's verse is the theorem and the tide. He is the thicket and the twilight, pricking pride, parting perils. In this visionary vigil, as isles illumine and lagoons lap, let his legacy light you, a luminous lullaby to sleep's layered labyrinth. Drifting into the ash-veiled vales of Solstime's scowled village, where Nordic exiles endure the eternal eclipse of the All-Maker's austere aura, Vivec's poetic persistence pierces the pall in the Vec's veiled vignette, barrows brimmed with his verses that vignette the volcanoes into vistas of veiled vitality. In the 4E 1840 Eclipse of the Godhead, these vignettes veiled a volcanic vanguard, illusions of poetic plumes parting pyroclastic perils into portals of preserved pilgrimage, veils vibrating in the valor of volcanic vows. As the veil's vapors veil the veiled veil, villagers venture to vestigial hearths. The vignettes veil a volcanic hush, lulling them to dreams of ashen ascent. In the ink-infused infinities of Apocrypha's ever-expanding archives, where Hermaeus Mora's minions murmur in the miasma of musty manuscripts, Vivec's duality delves in the Vivec's Apocrypha anthem, shelves shelved with his lessons that anthem the abyssal archives into anthems of arcane amnesty. During the 4E 1860 Labyrinth of the Enlightened, these anthems animated a labyrinthine loss, songs summoning spectral scribes to script the stranded into sanctuaries of sated scholarship, tomes turning in the triumph of tentacled tomes. The infinity's ink fades to a foggy fold, the anthem's apocrypha an abyssal sigh, inviting the knowledge kin to rest's riddle-wreathed repose. Amid the mist-mantled meadows of Nibene Basin's blooming bowers, where Cyrodiil's columbine colors the countryside in candid cascades, Vivec's warrior-poet whims weave the Vivec's meadow motif, meadows marked with his canticles that motif the mists into motifs of merciful medley. In the 4E 1880 Bloom of Mercy, these motifs mended a meadow melee, verses veiling vendettas in veils of visionary verdure, bowers blooming in the balm of balanced blooms. The meadow's mist mellows as moonrise murmurs, the motif's meadow a misty hush, drawing the basin dwellers to slumber's flowered field.
In the fractured facets of the allied ruins' radiant remnants, where wild elves' whispers wail in the wilderness, Vivec's CHIM cleaves as the ruins' radiant requiem, inspiring shades to sing his dual dirges, gleams of ghostly grandeur glowing in the gloaming's grasp. As the fifth era's veils vanquish, Vivec's verse is the vignette and the void. He is the veil and the volume, piercing palls, probing profundities. In this meadows medley, as solstime stills and apocrypha archives, let his legacy lull you, a lingering lullaby to sleep's luminous lore. Echoing through the ethereal expanses of the soul-cairn's somber skies, where ideal masters impose their icy indifference amid the soul's silent screams, Vivec's poetic potency prevails in the Vex Cairn canto, cairns carved with his verses that canto the cold into cantos of compassionate convergence. In the 4E 1900 haunting of the Godhead, these cantos conjured a convergence of captive kin, illusions of poetic phantasms parting the pall into portals of preserved passage, skies shimmering in the subtlety of sated spirits. As the cairn's chill cloaks the cloistered clouds, wanderers wend to warded wisps, the cairn's canto a chilling hush, lulling them to dreams of spectral solace. In the verdant vaults of green shades' verdant vales, where bosmer bones whisper in the wild's woven web, Vivec's duality dwells in the Vivec's green shade gloria, groves graced with his lessons that gloria the growth into glories of gracious growth. During the 4E 1920 wild of the enlightened, these glories guided a grove's grim grudge, songs summoning spectral sprouts to sprout the strife into sanctuaries of sated symbiosis, vales verdant in the victory of vital vines. The vault's verdure veils to a velvety veil, the gloria's green shade a green hush, inviting the wood-wardens to rest's rooted reverie. Beneath the bustling boulevards of Wayrest's opulent underbelly, where Breton barons barter in the bustle's bold beat, Vivec's warrior-poet wit wields the Vivec's boulevard ballade, boulevards branded with his canticles that ballade the brawls into ballads of benevolent bustle. In the 4E 1940 Trade of Mercy, these ballads bridged a boulevard blockade, verses veiling vendettas in veils of visionary venture, streets stirring in the symphony of sated sails. The boulevard's bustle bows to the night's noble nod, the ballade's boulevard a bustling balm, drawing the merchant minds to sleep's silken street. In the timeless tapestries of the warp in the West's woven whims, where time's threads tangle in temporal twists, Vivec's CHIM concludes as the West's woven waltz, inspiring echoes to entwine his dual dirges eternally, patterns of profound peace pulsing in the perpetual pulse. As the fifth era's expanses expand, Vivec's verse is the canto and the conclusion. He is the cairn and the canopy, converging cold, cultivating calm. In this eternal epilogue, as souls soothe and streets still, let his legacy envelop you,
an enveloping lullaby to sleep's supreme serenity. Vivec, the warrior-poet, forever the verse that vanquishes the void. Venturing into the volcanic vaults of Vardenfell, amid the marble minarets of sentinel sunlit spires, where Yokuden Yor yields to the city's ceaseless clamor, Vivec's warrior-poet wisdom weaves the Vivec's minaret melody. Minarets marked with his canticles that melody the markets into melodies of merciful medley. In the 4E2000 Bazaar of Mercy, these melodies mended a minaret melee, verses veiling vendettas in veils of visionary verdure, spires soaring in the symphony of sated sails. The minaret's marble mellows as moonrise murmurs, the melody's minaret a melodic hush, drawing the desert dwellers to slumber's sun-kissed shade. In the fractured facets of the Dwemer's deep delving, where brass behemoths buzz in buried bunkers, Vivec's CHIM cleaves as the delving's deep dirge, inspiring echoes to entwine his dual dirges, hums of hidden harmony humming in the hollow's heart. As the fifth era's sands shift, Vivec's verse is the vesper and the voice. He is the vault and the vista, veiling volcanoes, voicing valor. In this melodic murmur, as Vardenfell vibrates and Alakar airs, let his legacy lull you, a lingering lullaby to sleep's sunlit sanctuary. Vivec, eternal, the poet who paints the provinces in peace.